subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Psychological shadow on Ryo Minoru. Although Midorima Shintarō's defense is also very good, compared with Fang Jilai, it seems not so strong. Ryo Minoru would rather face Shintarō Midorima than face Lai again. Facing Midorima Shintarō's defense, Minoru Ryo took a deep breath and jumped up suddenly. Upon seeing this, Midorima Shintarō jumped up and raised his right hand high. Minoru Ryo used sky to shoot, and the basketball entered the basket steadily. Lyoja Middle School finally scored another goal. After the goal, the small forward of the Rock League high-fived Ryo Mabuchi excitedly. "Sister Ryo? Good goal." Minoru Ryo shook her head. Her expression was very serious because the defensive feeling Midorima Shintarō gave him just now had changed. Midorima Shintarō pushed up his glasses, his face expressionless, making it impossible to tell what he was thinking. Transition of possession. Akashi Sejiro chose the simplest method, which was to pass the basketball to Atsushi Murasakibara. Because Rocco's inside line was too weak, Atsushi Murasakibara was like a shark entering a school of fish in the inside line, bombarding him wantonly. Atsushi Murasakibara hit the top of the Rock A center with a back shot, and then dunked the basketball into the basket through the Rock A power forward who came to defend. Collapse. After the goal, Atsushi Murasakibara turned back to defense without any hesitation. The Lyoja center was pulled up by the Lyoja power forward. After getting up, the Lyoja center covered his chest and said in a deep voice, "What kind of monster is this?" Transition of possession. Ryo Minoru once again received the ball to face Shintarō Midorima. This time Ryo Minoru still chose to use sky to shoot. I originally thought I would vote again, but something changed this time. After Midorima Shintarō took off, he took a small step forward with his right foot and jumped up. He raised his left hand high, and his fingers brushed against Ryo Minoru's shot. Minoru Ryo looked stunned. "I touched it." After landing, Ryo Minoru was about to shout for a rebound, but when he saw Atsushi Murasakibara inside, he gave up, because he knows that his center will definitely not be able to catch Teik's inside monster. Sure enough, Atsushi Murasakibara easily grabbed the rebound without even being blocked. After grabbing the rebound, Midorima Shintarō raised his right hand and shouted to Atsushi Murasakibara, "Ball." Atsushi Murasakibara didn't hesitate and passed the basketball to Midorima Shintarō. After Midorima Shintarō caught the ball, he dribbled the ball outside the Rocco three-point line and jumped up to meet Ryo Minoru. Minoru Ryo jumped up and tried to stop him. No. Why, how? Why are you jumping higher and higher?" Ryo Minoru looked at Shintarō Midorima shooting in disbelief, because he found that he couldn't even touch Shintarō Midorima's elbow. Kiyoshi Teppei in the audience sighed, "Sabuki, your physical strength doesn't support you at all in taking off like this anymore." Midorima Shintarō threw the basketball, and the basketball flew high into the sky until it was close to the ceiling of the basketball stadium before it started to fall. During this process, Shintarō Midorima pushed up his glasses and said to Ryo Minoru, "I will do my best to wait for destiny, and my shots will not be lost." After saying that, Midorima Shintarō turned around and walked towards his front court. Everyone in Lyoja looked at the basketball falling from the sky, and the pressure in their hearts suddenly increased. This is Midorima Shintarō's shot. The ultra-high arc and long flight process give the opponent a strong sense of oppression. The basketball fell quickly and accurately entered the basket. Teik scored another three-pointer. The score was 78-52. Transition of possession. There were no surprises for everyone in Rocco, and they passed the ball to Ryo Minoru after halftime. Midorima Shintarō followed up after Ryo Minoru caught the ball. Seeing this, Minoru Ryo quickly raised her hands in the air and made a shooting gesture. Midorima Shintarō raised his right hand high and had no intention of jumping. Minoru Ryo looked ugly. If he doesn't jump, isn't he afraid that I will use heaven? Midorima Shintarō seemed to know what Ryo Minoru was thinking and said, "Don't think too much." In your current state, if you use heaven, you will only be fooled by me. In other words, even if you are in your best state, I can also take advantage of your heaven. Ryo Minoruchi's expression changed after hearing this, and she said angrily, "What did you say?" Shintaro Midorima had no expression on his face and said calmly, "I will risk your life." Minoru Ryo said angrily, "Then come and try it." After saying that, Minoru Ryo suddenly jumped up and used heaven. Midorima Shintarō took a small step forward with his right foot, jumped high, and was instantly parallel to Ryo Minoru. Minoru Ryo's complexion changed drastically because he discovered that Midorima Shintarō did not lie to him. Even if it was Tion in his heyday, the current Midorima Shintarō could take it, because at this time Midorima Shintarō jumped even higher than at the beginning. How could it be? What happened? Why can your jumping height still increase? Ryo Minoru had no other choice. He wanted to pass the ball, but found that none of his teammates had a suitable position to catch the ball. Helpless, Ryo Minoru had no choice but to shoot the basketball. Midorima Shintarō raised his left hand high and slapped Ryo Minoru's shot away. "I told you, I will risk your life." Chapter 96, the third trick, I give you a. Minoru Ryo's pupils trembled and her mouth opened wide. She couldn't believe the scene that just happened. On the Liujiao bench, a first-year student also opened her mouth wide and murmured in disbelief. Sister Ling Yang's heaven has been cracked again. Fang Jilai slightly raised his lips when he saw this scene. The reason why Midorima Shintarō jumped higher than before was because Fang Jilai made suggestions to Midorima Shintarō in the lounge. Fang Jilai told Midorima Shintarō that as long as when Ryo Minoru uses heaven, she takes a small step forward and then exerts force so that she can jump higher than where she is. Obviously, Midorima Shintarō immediately understood what Fang Jilai meant and quickly used it, and completely blocked Ryo Minoru's heaven. Akashi Sejiro got the stolen basketball and shouted, "Quick break!" King Feng Dahue's face lit up with joy, and he rushed forward like a hunting panther. Nijimura Shuzo on the bench clenched his fists and looked at Aomine Daiki on the court and said angrily, "What an idiot! You start acting wild again before your physical strength has recovered. Are you afraid that your legs won't be soft when you wake up the next day?" At this time, Aomine Daiki couldn't control so much. He turned on his wildness and looked like a god of war. He caught the basketball, spun in the air, and dunked the basketball into the basket. After the goal, the score has reached 80-52. This score makes the audience really unable to see the hope of winning the Liujiao League. It's too scary. Teikō is already ahead by 28 points, and Rocco is completely in dire straits. Yeah, I didn't expect that besides the Rubik's Cube, there would be someone else who could knock off the Yiksha's shot. I didn't expect that the finals would be like this. The game was completely one-sided. Kiyoshi Teppei sat in the audience for a long time without coming back to his senses because he knew the style of play of Rocco Middle School. Almost all the offensive pressure of Rocco Middle School was on Ryo Minoru. All the tactics of Rocco Middle School revolve around Ryo Minoru. Now that Ryo Minoru has failed, there is basically no hope for Rocco's competition. The fact is just as Teppei Kiyoshi expected. After Ryo Minoru was sealed away by Shintaro Midorima, the Earth lost its original power. Rocco Middle School was completely in a scoring drought, and the other four players in Rocco had no way to get points in front of the others in Teikō. Minachi Ryo also tried misplaced shots after the pick and roll, but every time after the pick and roll, Fang Jilai would let go of the defensive task and immediately come to make up the defense. This makes it impossible for Michibuchi Ryo to play in misplaced singles. The third quarter of the game also ended in this situation. The score had reached 98-52. In the second half of the third quarter, Liujiao Middle School did not score a point. Liujiao Middle School was completely in despair. Fang Jilai looked at Minoru Ryang's back and got the answer in his heart. Ryo Minoru has not yet developed Void. Fang Jilai suddenly thought of something again, and with a sudden increase in bad taste, he decided to give Ryo Minoru a small Teikō shock again. After the break, the Liujiao bench was lifeless, with no fighting spirit at all. Everyone fell into despair. In despair, the Liujia point guard clenched his fists and uttered, "Today is my last year. I don't want to have any regrets. Even if I lose, I will accept it, but I will not give up. I will stand on the court and compete until the last second." The other two third-year students in Liujia looked at the point guard in Liujia. After a moment of silence, they said, "I also don't want to have any regrets." In this way, everyone in Liujia entered the arena with their final determination. Changes have also occurred on Teik's side. Fang Jilai and Midorima Shintarō have changed their positions, which means that Ryo Michibuchi will face Fang Jilai's defense again. But this time it was different. Everyone in Rakjia had long known that there was no hope for this game, so Ryo Minoru did not choose to continue holding the ball. Instead, basketball is handed over to the graduating juniors to attack, at least for them to play the last game on the court. But the answer is obvious. Basketball was taken down unsurprisingly. King Feng Dehui dropped the basketball and passed it to Fang Jilai. Fang Jilai dribbled the ball and came in front of Ryo Minoru. The corners of his mouth suddenly raised, and he said, "Do you only have two special skills?" Shibuchi Lingyang looked at Fang Jilai and nodded resignedly. Fang Jilai smiled slightly when he saw this and said, "The next move is the third stun I give you. Feel it well." Minoru Ryo was stunned, not knowing what Fang Jilai had in mind, but he still half-crouched and guarded Fang Jilai carefully. Fang Jilai's dribbling hand suddenly connected with the ball. His knees were slightly bent, his hands were raised, and he exerted upward force. Minoru Ryo was very confused. A normal shot? Suddenly, Fang Jilai paused and then jumped up again. The Liujia bench was suddenly overjoyed. "Great! It's just an ordinary shot. Sister Lingyang will definitely miss him." Minoru Ryo thought it was just an ordinary shot, and when he wanted to take off to block the shot, he suddenly discovered, Why I can't jump?" There was fear in Michibuchi Ryo's pupils, and she stood there and watched Fang Jilai throw the basketball into the basket. Liujia's first-year substitute's delighted expression suddenly froze. "Sister Lingyang, why don't you jump? Sister Lingyang, this is just an ordinary shot." On the court, the power forward of the 6A League also felt unbelievable. "Mibuchi, why don't you defend an ordinary shot?" Minoru Ryo turned her head in horror and murmured, "Jump? Can't jump." The Rocco power forward was stunned. He felt that Ryo Minoru was making excuses and said, "Why can't you jump? Are you kidding me?" In the next round, Liujia still did not score a goal, and the basketball was once again given to Fang Jilai. But this time the defenders of Fang Jilai became Liujia power forwards. The Liujia power forward looked at Fang Jilai's figure and said unhappily, "It's just an excuse for not being able to jump." Fang Jilai dribbled the ball in front of the Liujia power forward, knelt down, and exerted force on the ball. He paused halfway through the effort, then jumped up again and threw the basketball. The power forward of Rakjia finally felt the feeling just now. The power forward of Rakjia raised his right hand high, stood straight on the spot, and watched the basketball enter his own basket with horrified eyes. "I really can't jump." Chapter 97, the end of Liujia. The first championship on the Liujia bench. The first-year student once again spoke in disbelief. Why? Why doesn't Senior take off? Isn't that just an ordinary shot? Miyoshi Teppei in the audience was surprised. What the hell is going on? It's ridiculous. On the field, Coach Liujia called a timeout and was ready to ask what was going on. The Liujia power forward froze in place for a long time without moving, and it was the Liujia center who came over to wake him up. "What the hell is going on?" The Liujia power forward replied blankly. "Jump. Can't jump. Really can't jump." "What? Can't jump?" The Rock, a center, sounded surprised. A simple shot could make Ryo Mibuchi and the Rock-A power forward unable to jump. This sounded too unreal. On the other side, Aomine Daiki explained to everyone in Teikō what Fang Jilai's shooting was all about. After hearing this, everyone showed expressions of realization. Akashi Sidro said, "Jilai is such a genius. He actually came up with such a move." Atsushi Murasakibara nodded blankly. "Yes, Fang-kin is so awesome. By the way, King Zai, how do you know that?" King Feng Dehui laughed twice and said, "Because Alai and I used this trick before when we were duel." Platinum Jingzo suddenly grasped the key point. King Feng-san, you said Jilai-san has ever challenged you to a duel? Aomine Daiki hasn't realized the seriousness of the matter yet, and still wants to continue talking. Fang Jilai suddenly reacted and covered King Feng Dahui's mouth, which prevented King Feng Dahui from continuing to speak. Coach, Ada was talking about before school started. Not recently, not recently. Fang Jilai smiled awkwardly and explained it by Jin Gingzhou. Bai Jin Gingzhou looked at Fang Jilai with suspicion. Oh, really? Fang Jilai nodded seriously. Yes, coach. I definitely didn't lie. Then why did you cover Aomine San's mouth? Because Ada has forgotten. His memory has been a bit confusing recently. Right, Ada? Fang Jilai let go of King Feng Dahui's hand and winked wildly at King Feng Dahui. King Feng Dahui reacted quickly, touched his head, and smiled awkwardly. Yes, coach, it was used when Alai and I first met. Shirogane Jinzo was still a little skeptical, but he didn't have too much entanglement and let the matter end. Classmate Jilai, remember what I say. Your body is still in the development stage, so don't cause unnecessary injuries. Fang Jilai nodded repeatedly. Don't worry, coach. I will definitely comply. Only then did Platinum Gungzhou stop pursuing the matter. King Feng Dahui immediately pulled Fang Jilai and asked, Alai, what's going on? Do you have any agreement with the coach? Fang Jilai sighed and whispered, Coach Platinum doesn't allow me to fight you one-on-one with all my strength. Aomine Daiki was stunned for a moment. Why? Fang Jilai opened his mouth and explained, because we are still in the developmental stage. If we fight alone with all our strength, it is likely to put unnecessary burden on the body. King Feng Dahui nodded depressedly. That's it. Suddenly, Aomine Daiki thought of something and asked excitedly, Coach Platinum just said that we don't need to use all our strength, so why don't we just have to fight hard? Fang Jilai rolled his eyes and said, I can do it, can you? King Feng Dahui touched his head, smiled haha, and said sheepishly, It seems can't. The game continues. After Minoru Reo came on the stage, she immediately ran to Fang Jilai and asked, What's the name of your move? Fang Jilai turned to look at Rhea Minachi, who was asking for advice, and smiled lightly. Void. Minoru Reo kept murmuring, Void, void. Reo Minoru suddenly turned her head. Can you tell me the principle? Fang Jilai smiled mysteriously. Yes, but why should I do this? After saying that, Fang Jilai turned around and left, leaving Shibuchi Lingyang standing alone. The game is still going on the court, but Fang Jilai and Michibuchi Ryo are like outsiders. Minoru Rhea immediately caught up with Fang Jilai and said, Master. Fang Jilai was stunned, turned his head in disbelief, and asked, What the hell? Minoru Rhea looked at Fang Jilai seriously and shouted again, Master, please teach me. After saying that, Minoru Rhea bowed solemnly. Fang Jilai couldn't handle this, so he quickly helped Rhea Michibuchi up. Okay, I'll teach you. You don't have to call me master. I'm just kidding. Minoru Ryo shook her head. Fang Jilai patted his forehead helplessly. Why is this a stupid young man? Fang Jilai had no choice but to stop worrying about what Rei Yang said. After explaining the basic principles to Ryo Minoru, I said nothing more. Everything depends on Ryo Minoru's understanding. Beat. The final whistle sounded, and the score was fixed at 126-52. In the fourth quarter, Liu Jia didn't score a point and was given a clean sheet by Teikō. The audience looked at the score in surprise and were shocked. They never thought of it. The score in the finals was actually one-sided, with Teikō leading by a full 74 points. Many middle schools watching the game quickly went back to prepare plans, because Teikō's current display of strength has completely shocked them. It can be said that Teikō will be in the next 2 years the biggest rival of all middle schools, bar none. Miyoshi Teppei stood up with a serious look on his face. I didn't expect, Minoru, you would lose so miserably. Miyoshi Teppei looked at the score of 126-52 and was extremely shocked. Such a tragic score actually occurred in the finals. This made Muji Teppei very unbelievable. Kiyoshi Teppei looked deeply at the people in Teikō. Are you still evolving? The teams from both sides lined up, bowed friendly, and left the field. Several third-year students in Liuejia could no longer bear it, and tears fell from their eyes. Their last game came to an end, but they were a little happy, because in the next 2 years, they will no longer have to face a perverted team like Teikō. It is up to their juniors to face it. Everyone in Teikō did not leave the field. They all stood next to the scorer. A group photo was taken to record the first championship in their lives. Reporters are also like sharks smelling blood. He rushed over like crazy and took pictures of everyone in Teikō. Under the flashing lights, everyone in Teikō slowly walked towards the lounge. Chapter 98 Hot Pot in the Lounge. Aomine Daiki was extremely excited and kept talking about his recent competition experience. So handsome, so handsome. My olish whip va se thrill. Atsushi Murasakibara changed clothes, sat on the bench, and ate delicious bars, ignoring Aomine Daiki. Fang Jilai looked at the dancing King Fang Dahui speechlessly and twitched the corner of his mouth. Nijimura Shuzao had a black line on his head and kicked Aomine Daiki on the butt. Please be quiet, you idiot. Aomine Dahui covered his buttocks and became honest instantly. Shirogane Jinzo laughed and patted Hongsun Zaizu on the shoulder. Hongsun, can't you let others celebrate when your junior wins the championship? Seeing the coach speak, Aomine Daiki immediately nodded in agreement. That's right, Nijimura Senpai is so. Hongsun Shiozao stared at King Feng Dahui and slowly said, What is it not? King Feng Dahui said intermittently, No, not a bad person, not a bad person. Hongsun Shiozao didn't hesitate because he was also a little excited. Kuroko Tetsuya looked at everyone with a smile, took out his mobile phone, and shared his joy with his friend. Fang Jilai stood up and said, Everyone, let's go to the dinner party later. Shirogane Jinzo looked at everyone with a smile and said, It's time to get together, and I will fund it today. Atsushi Murasakibara suddenly became excited and kept saying, Eat, eat, eat. Everyone laughed when they saw Atsushi Murasakibara's appearance. Haizaki Shogo changed his clothes and smiled without anyone noticing. The championship. It feels pretty good. Suddenly, Haizaki Shogo felt as it kicked. That BD attacked me. Haizaki Shogo turned around and roared. After seeing that it was Nijimura who built it, Haizaki Shogo said, Senior Nijimura, what are you doing? Nijimura Shuzo whistled and urged. Hurry up and change your clothes. I'm waiting for you. Haizaki Shogo said impatiently. I know. When everyone saw this scene, they laughed again. Haizaki Shogo smiled when everyone looked at him like this, and he speeded up changing clothes shyly. After all preparations were completed, everyone in Teikō first accepted interviews from reporters and then walked out of the arena to look for a restaurant. Ohut! Satsuki Momoi followed Fang Jilai and looked at the Teikō people chatting and laughing in front of them. She smiled sweetly and said, Lai, do you think we will always be like this? Fang Jilai put his hands on the back of his head, smiled and said, I will. Satsuki Momoi then smiled sweetly. Lai, no matter what you do, I will follow you. Fang Jilai turned around, touched Satsuki Momoi's head, and said softly, My Iya is sensible. Satsuki Momoi pouted and knocked Fang Jilai's hand off. Humph! Straight man. Fang Jilai was made to laugh by Satsuki Momoi's reaction. He pinched Satsuki Momoi's face with both hands and said with a smile, Come on, my Iya is angry. What should I do? After speaking, Fang Jilai made a thinking gesture. Satsuki Momoi pouted and looked at Fang Jilai's position unconsciously. Suddenly, Fang Jilai kissed Satsuki Momoi without anyone seeing it. Okay, don't be angry anymore. Satsuki Momoi's face instantly turned red and she nodded shyly. Alai you, huh? Satsuki, why are you blushing? King Feng Dahui suddenly turned his head and said. The other people in Teikō were also attracted and turned to look at Satsuki Momoi. Satsuki Momoi's face turned redder when everyone looked at her. Fang Jilai said helpfully, It's a bit hot, it's red. Aomine Daiki didn't hesitate and quickly ran to Fang Jilai's side and said in a cowardly manner, Alai, Akashi, Midorima, and I just decided that we are going to eat. Hot pot. Fang Jilai looked stunned. Is there a hot pot here? Midorima Shintarō pushed up his glasses and said, "Of course. It really does." Fang Jilai looked at the huge hot pot restaurant. There was a long queue outside the store. The clerks in the store were running around constantly, and the business was very booming. Midorima Shintarō pushed up his glasses. This store opened last month. Because the taste is extremely delicious, the business is very busy. Atsushi Momoi said blankly, "But there are so many people. When will it be our turn? I'm already hungry." Kuroko Tetsuya suddenly pointed to the name of the hot pot restaurant and said, "I think I know the reason." Atsushi Momoi and Teikō looked up along Kuroko Tetsuya's finger. "I saw that the name of the hot pot restaurant was How to Make Spicy Hot Pot. Is there anything special about it?" Atsushi Momoi said blankly, turning to look at everyone in confusion. Everyone looked at Atsushi Momoi with blank expressions. When Atsushi Momoi was still confused, he saw Aomine Daiki pointing at Fang Jilai and then the name of the hot pot restaurant. Only then did Atsushi Momoi react. "Fang, is this a hot pot restaurant owned by your family?" The news that Fang Jilai's family is very rich has spread in Teikō, so everyone in Teikō knows about the strength of Fang Jilai's family. Fang Jilai was stunned. "I don't know either. I'll call my dad and ask him." After saying that, Fang Jilai called to inquire. After receiving a positive answer, Fang Jilai walked back, looked at Midorima Shintarō, and said, "You have known for a long time that this store is owned by my family, right? So you want to use my power to avoid queuing?" Midorima Shintarō and Akashi Sejiro didn't reply, but Fang Jilai could see from their faces that this was what they had in mind. Fang Jilai had no choice but to say, "Let's go, my dad has already made arrangements." King Feng Dahui jumped up instantly. "Woohoo! Eat hot pot!" While Aomine Daiki was still dancing, Atsushi Momoi had already rushed in. "It turns out there are experts out there." Fang Jilai held his forehead and led everyone in. Because Father Fang had already given instructions, several people quickly entered a private room. The people at the hot pot restaurant learned that it was their young master, so they quickly served food and drinks for several people. Fang Jilai thought that Satsuki Momoi and some other people might not like spicy food, so he ordered the Mandarin duck hot pot. King Feng Dahui looked at the bubbling red soup and started to drool. Midorima Shintarō pushed up his glasses and reminded, "Aomine, I advise you to eat the bottom of the clear soup, because the red soup will be very spicy." King Feng Dahui smiled disdainfully. "Oh, real men only eat red soup." Midorima Shintarō shook his head slightly, picked up the meat slices in the clear soup, and said, "Then it's up to you." After saying that, Midorima Shintarō began to eat. Upon seeing this, Aomine Dahui immediately picked up a piece of meat from the red soup and put it into his mouth. Chapter 99, Your Mother Misses You. After Aomine Dahui ate the meat slices, a delicious feeling instantly hit his taste buds. Just when Aomine Daiki showed an expression of enjoyment, a feeling of pain instantly came over him. "Spicy. Water. Water." Midorima Shintarō quickly took out a glass of green water and handed it to Aomine Daiki. He had long expected that Aomine Daiki would be in this situation. King Feng Dahui was a little stunned by the heat. He picked up the water and drank it in one gulp without even looking. The moment he drank the water, Aomine Dahui felt that his taste buds had been severely damaged, and he vomited it out. What is this?" Aomine Daiki stuck out his tongue and screamed. Midorima Shintarō lowered his head slightly, and his glasses turned white due to reflection, making it difficult to see clearly. "This is mustard water that I specially prepared." Aomine Daiki was so hot that he endured the pain and picked up the drink next to him and drank it. Fang Jilai twitched the corner of his mouth. "Xiaolu is so cruel." After Aomine Daiki calmed down after drinking water, he became honest and ate the clear soup honestly. Except for Fang Jilai, almost everyone in Teikō eats clear soup. But there are two exceptions. That would be Nijimura Shuzo and Haizaki Shogo. The two of them actually became addicted to the red soup, which Fang Jilai didn't expect. After finishing his meal, Coach Platinum prepared to check out, but was told that the order was free of charge. Only then did he remember that this hot pot restaurant was opened by Fang Jilai's family. You really don't have to pay. Everyone in Teikō went home after eating and drinking. Fang Jilai accompanied Satsuki Momoi home. After seeing Satsuki Momoi return home, he slowly walked home. "I'm back." Satsuki Momoi opened the door and found a strange man sitting at home. Satsuki Momoi's mother quickly said, "Xiaoye, come here quickly and call Uncle Fang." Satsuki Momoi walked up to the man, looked at the somewhat familiar face, and said, "Uncle Fang." "I'm back." Fang Jilai opened the door and shouted, but soon he found that no one was home. Fang Jilai was puzzled for a moment and then relieved, took off his clothes, and started taking a shower. "I sweated while eating hot pot, and it would be very uncomfortable if I didn't take a shower." Fang Jilai walked out after taking a shower and wiping his hair with a towel. "When I walked out, I found that my dad was already sitting on the sofa." Fang Jilai looked at Fang Gaoxian and said, "Hey, you're back, Dad." Fang Gaoxian nodded, looked up at Fang Jilai back. Fang Jilai seemed to sense that his father's mood was not right. He picked up the hairdryer on the side and started to dry his hair. At the same time, he asked, "What's wrong, Dad?" Fang Gaoxian sighed and said, "Shao Lai, we may have to leave Sakura country." Fang Jilai was startled by the action of blowing his hair and turned off the hairdryer. He turned his head in a daze and said hesitantly, "Dad, you can't you?" Fang Gaoxian nodded, with an unquestionable tone in his voice. "Our plans in the beautiful country are about to begin. We must go to the beautiful country." Fang Jilai turned around, looked directly at Fang Gaoxian, and asked, "Can I not go?" Fang Jilai actually didn't really want to leave. Now he has gained friendship and love. But when I was suddenly told that I had to leave here, no one wanted to. Fang Gaoxian shook his head. "No, you have to go, firstly, because you are the heir of the Fang family and must show up, and secondly, because your mother misses you." When Fang Jilai heard that his mother missed him, his expression changed, and he clenched his fists unwillingly. He is very grateful to his mother Yushuyu. First, Yushuyu gave him a second life. The second reason is because Yushuyu actually saved Fang Jilai's life when he was a child. If it weren't for Yushuyu, Fang Jilai's second life might have been canceled. Is there no other room for negotiation? Fang Gaoxian shook his head. Without giving any room for negotiation, no. Fang Jilai gritted his teeth unwillingly, clenched his fists, and then released them. "Is this the will of the world?" Fang Jilai said in a deep voice. "When are you leaving?" Fang Gaoxian said, "The day after tomorrow. Say goodbye to your friends tomorrow." "Will we come back?" "I don't know, maybe it will." Although Fang Gaoxian said this, he also knew in his heart that Fang Jilai would definitely come back here in the near future. Fang Jilai looked depressed and secretly determined that he must come back when he was in high school. At the same time, he decided to give it a try. So he said, "Dad, I can take it." Fang Gaoxian smiled slightly, as if he knew what Fang Jilai was worried about, and interrupted, "Don't worry, you can take your little girlfriend with you, and I've already negotiated with her parents. It'll be better now." Fang Jilai froze slightly. "Dad, you have?" Fang Gaoxian nodded. "Well, it's taken care of. I also asked the little girl, and she agreed. I can see that she has a very good feeling for you." After I said those words, she agreed without any hesitation. "You have to treat her well." Fang Jilai smiled when he saw this. "Don't worry, Dad. I will be good to her." Fang Gaoxian nodded and continued. "By the way, there is also your friend whose father is sick. I also met with his father today and have negotiated with him. They will also follow us to the beautiful country the day after tomorrow." Fang Jilai stared at his father blankly, and suddenly felt that his father's figure began to become great. He didn't even think that his father had already taken care of many things and didn't let him worry too much. In fact, Fang Jilai didn't know that Fang Gaoxian did more than just this for Fang Jilai at night. Fang Jilai lay on the bed and did not fall asleep for a long time. Fang Jilai raised his right hand, looked at it, and fell in a deep thought. Is it true that the will of the world cannot be changed? Is the era of miracles doomed to darken? No, I don't believe it. Even if I have to leave, I will try my best to change everything. Fang Jilai made a decision in his heart. Since leaving can't change, then change their minds. After thinking about it, Fang Jilai quickly fell asleep. The next day, after Fang Jilai got up, he first found Satsuki Momoi. Satsuki Momoi came downstairs with her mother. Satsuki Momoi's mother saw Fang Jilai's appearance, smiled and nodded, "Go Satsuki." With tears in her eyes, Satsuki Momoi let go of her mother's hand and walked to Fang Jilai's side. "Lai, are you leaving today?" Fang Jilai shook his head. "No. Today we do something meaningful." "Brothers, I was unlucky today. My glasses exploded when I woke up. As for the follow-up plot, let me tell you that you must leave because the beautiful country still has the plan. Akashi's second personality needs to be awakened, and this cannot be changed. However, the changes of several people in Generation of Miracles are completely different from the original work. Brothers can watch it with confidence." Chapter 100. "I am the only one who could defeat you, Fang Jilai," first asked King Feng Dahui out. King Feng Dahui received Fang Jilai's invitation, quickly got dressed, and rushed downstairs. The moment he saw Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi, a smile appeared on Aomine Daiki's face. "Hey, Alai, why are you looking for me so early?" Fang Jilai smiled hard and said, "Let's talk while we walk." King Feng Dahui noticed that something was wrong with Fang Jilai's mood, nodded, and followed Fang Jilai to wander on the street. The three of them walked together in silence on the street. Suddenly, Fang Jilai broke the silence. "Ada, I might have to leave." Aomine Daiki didn't hear the implication at the first time. "Let's go. I'll come back when school starts." Fang Jilai stopped and said nothing. King Feng Dahui also noticed something was wrong and reacted. "You mean?" Fang Jilai nodded. "I'm going to the beautiful country, and I may not come back until I'm in high school." King Feng Dahui's expression was frozen. He couldn't believe it. "Alai, today is not April Fool's Day. Are you kidding me?" Fang Jilai shook his head. "I'm not kidding." Aomine Daiki seemed unable to accept this reality. He turned around anxiously twice and said with a dancing voice, "But Alai, we just won the championship. We just—" Fang Jilai suddenly interrupted King Feng Dahui's words. "Ada, let's have a duel." King Feng Dahui looked at Fang Jilai anxiously, knowing that Fang Jilai's departure was inevitable. King Feng Dahui clenched his fists and refused for the first time. "No. Parting duel. I would rather not fight." Fang Jilai shook his head. "Ada, this one-on-one challenge is a must." King Feng Dahui shook his head firmly. "Impossible. I won't fight you." Satsuki Momoi looked at the two people in front of him distressfully and said, "Ada, just play with Lai." Since Satsuki Momoi established a relationship with Fang Jilai, she has made up her mind. No matter where Fang Jilai goes or what she does, Satsuki Momoi will firmly stand on Fang Jilai's side. After Satsuki Momoi finished speaking, Aomine Daiki looked at Satsuki Momoi hesitantly and said, "Satsuki, are you?" Satsuki Momoi nodded. "Well, I will go to the beautiful country with Lai." King Feng Dahui suddenly felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He froze in place and murmured in disbelief, "You are all gone. Then my little Mai's photo." Satsuki Momoi was suddenly froze by Aomine Daiki's words, and her frustration instantly turned into anger. "Aomine-san!" King Feng Dahui came back to his senses instantly. Bah. I said it wrong. Oops. Anyway, I can't fight in a one-on-one duel." Fang Jilai suddenly took out his cell phone and turned on the recording. The sound of King Feng Dahui's voice, constantly shaking out dirty information, came from the recording. Aomine Daiki suddenly froze on the spot. Satsuki Momoi listened in surprise to the voice coming from the phone. He walked up to Fang Jilai with interest and said, Lai, when did you get this recording? Send me a copy." King Feng Dahui looked at the two people whispering desperately, and a cool song was playing in his heart. But even so, Aomine Daiki still refused. "Even if you show me the recording, I won't agree to it. Even if I get bumped or thrown here today, I won't fight in this one-on-one duel. In the next 2 years, I will ask my people to help you grab the photo of Little Mai. I will take the photo of Little Mai when you were in junior high school. How many balls?" Fang Jilai and Aomine Daiki came to the wild field where there was no one nearby to prepare for a duel. Aomine Daiki confirmed before, Alai, 2 years of photos. Fang Jilai nodded helplessly. Don't worry, I will arrange it. Aomine Daiki nodded, with a frustrated expression on his face. I didn't expect that we just won the championship. And Alai, you are about to leave. Fang Jilai shook his head helplessly. There's nothing we can do about it. Okay, let's get started. King Feng Dahui nodded and began to prepare for the attack. Fang Jilai looked at King Feng Dahui and said, King Feng, I want to ask you something. Aomine Daiki held up the basketball and was stunned for a moment. What? Fang Jilai did not continue to speak and began to half-crouch to defend King Feng Dahui. Suddenly, an unparalleled and unimaginable pressure surged out of Fang Jilai's body and swept across King Feng Dahui's body in an instant. This coercion is like Mount Tai pressing down on the top, and also like overwhelming mountains and seas. It is fierce and unstoppable. King Feng Dahui's face changed drastically, and cold sweat continued to fall on his forehead. He only felt as if he was being stared at by a ferocious beast. His whole body was stiff, and his limbs were as if they were nailed, and it was difficult to move at all. The terrifying aura filled him with fear, and his throat was so dry that he could hardly make a sound. What the hell is going on? A moment later, King Feng Dahui paralyzed on the ground and gasped for air. Fang Jilai looked at King Feng Dahui condescendingly, feeling full of oppression. Satsuki Momoi looked at the two people on the court in surprise. Is this Lai's true strength? Fang Jilai pulled King Feng Dahui up and spoke slowly. I hope you will remember this duel well, and then work hard to catch up with me. You must remember that the only one who can defeat you is me. After saying that, Fang Jilai turned around and left with Satsuki Momoi, leaving Aomine Daiki alone, standing there blankly. Are you the only one who can defeat me? Lai, is this your true strength? Fang Jilai touched Satsuki Momoi's head. That's right. Satsuki Momoi narrowed her eyes in enjoyment and whispered, Who should we look for next? Little green bar. Okay. Midorima Shintarō was watching the morning divination program, which was playing at this time. Aries has the best fortune today. Congratulations. There is no problem. The worst is Cancer. It's better to be honest. Midorima Shintarō pushed up his glasses and said secretly, Does Cancer have the lowest luck? Ring, ring, ring. Suddenly, Midorima Shintarō's cell phone rang, and he picked up the phone suspiciously to see who was calling him. After seeing the note above, Midorima Shintarō was confused for a moment and then answered the phone. Hey, Jilai. Chapter 101 Requests and Requirements. Midorima Shintarō received Fang Jilai's invitation and went to the appointment with his lucky charm. Midorima Shintarō saw Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi at the designated place. He walked over and asked, Jilai, what's the matter? Fang Jilai told Midorima Shintarō the news that he was about to go to beautiful country. Midorima Shintarō showed a shocked expression at first, but quickly disappeared. Is there anything you need to tell me? Fang Jilai nodded. But in fact, Fang Jilai was not very worried about Midorima Shintarō, because in the original work, Midorima Shintarō is the third person besides Kuroko Tetsuya and Kai's Ryota who has not been completely darkened. It can be said that Midorima Shintarō is absolutely rational. Fang Jilai has only one request for Midorima Shintarō, and that is to be optimistic about Aomine Daiki, supervise his training, and persuade others if necessary. Fang Jilai did not ask for too much, because he knew that Shintarō Midorima was also a person who was very afraid of trouble. Just staring at Aomine Daiki alone was already very troublesome. Midorima Shintarō frowned, but still nodded and agreed to Fang Jilai's request. Seeing this, Fang Jilai smiled and took Satsuki Momoi to find the third person, Atsushi Murasakibara. Fang Jilai invited Atsushi Murasakibara to the restaurant. Atsushi Murasakibara happily sat at the table waiting for the food to be served, and then listened while eating. Fang Jilai told him about his upcoming departure. After saying this, Atsushi Murasakibara froze in his eating movements and even stopped eating. Fang-kin, do you want to leave? Fang Jilai nodded with a smile, with reluctance in his eyes. Suddenly, Fang Jilai saw Atsushi Murasakibara in front of him and burst into tears. Fang-kin, can you not leave? Atsushi Murasakibara spoke to Fang Jilai with tears in her eyes. Fang Jilai didn't know how to deal with it for a moment. So he quickly handed the tissue to Atsushi Murasakibara and coaxed Atsushi Murasakibara with food. Atsushi Murasakibara spoke again. Fang-kin, can you not leave? Fang Jilai shook his head. No, there's indeed something wrong. Atsushi Murasakibara wiped away his tears and asked, if there is anything that Mr. Fang needs from me, please tell me. Fang Jilai smiled slightly and expressed his request. In fact, Fang Jilai's request for Atsushi Murasakibara is not high. He only needs Atsushi Murasakibara not to provoke Akashi Sejiro. At the same time, Fang Jilai hopes that Atsushi Murasakibara can persist in training. If it were anyone else, Atsushi Murasakibara would not listen at all, but this was Fang Jilai's words. As long as it was Fang Jilai's words, Atsushi Murasakibara would obey them honestly. He promised Fang Jilai that he would train well. Fang Jilai nodded happily and left here after paying for Atsushi Murasakibara. Atsushi Murasakibara looked at Fang Jilai's back sadly, and then his sadness turned into appetite and he began to eat the food on the table. Akashi Sejiro walked next to Fang Jilai with a smile. What's wrong, Jilai? Fang Jilai and Akashi Sejiro made an appointment in a library. Fang Jilai looked at the smiling Akashi Sejiro and said, Ajing, I hope you remember something. Akashi Sejiro felt something was wrong with Fang Jilai, and his expression instantly became serious. Fang Jilai spoke slowly. Ajing, a duel between different players cannot be used as a measure of strength. Akashi Sejiro felt that Fang Jilai was a little confused today. Jilai, is this why you asked me out? Fang Jilai shook his head slightly before telling him about his upcoming trip to the beautiful country. Akashi Sejiro's pupils trembled slightly. His expression was shocked. So sudden, Fang Jilai nodded. Yes, so I hope you, Ajing, can remember what I said. Akashi Sejiro lowered his head slightly, his face a little depressed, but he quickly adjusted back. I know Jilai. I will remember your words. Fang Jilai smiled happily, and after bidding farewell to Akashi Sejiro, he took Satsuki Momoi to invite the next person. Haizaki Shogo. Fang Jilai was actually just a request to them, not a requirement, because everyone had their own ideas, and it was impossible for Fang Jilai to let others proceed according to their own ideas. It can only serve as a reminder. As for whether it can resist the will of the world, Fang Jilai doesn't know. Haizaki Shogo received a call from Fang Jilai at home and instantly ejected and ran away. Brother Lai, are you looking for me? Fang Jilai looked at the smiling Haizaki Shogo with a sigh in his heart. The little villain in the original work who was hated by many people is now like a well-behaved little boy. Fang Jilai did not want Haizaki Shogo to return to the appearance in the original work, so he decided to change Haizaki Shogo. For others, Fangle is a request, but for Haizaki Shogo, Fang Jilai is a request, because only requests can change Haizaki Shogo. Fang Jilai also told Haizaki Shogo about the news that he was about to leave Sakura country. Haizaki Shogo was stunned after hearing this. Leg, are you kidding me? Fang Jilai shook his head. I'm not joking. Haizaki Shogo doubted whether his ears were blind. He patted his ears and asked again, Brother, can you say it again? Fang Jilai raised his fist and asked, Do you need me to say anything else? Haizaki Shogo waved his hand repeatedly. No. Fang Jilai then put down his fist and began to speak out his request. Listen, I hope you can train well when I'm not here. Don't skip classes all the time. I don't care about you fighting as long as you have a valid reason, but if I find you hurting innocent people, you'll be the first person I cut when I come back. Haizaki Shogo quickly stood at attention and said seriously, Yes, I will definitely obey Lai Ge's instructions. Fang Jilai patted Haizaki Shogo on the shoulder happily. Go back. Yes. After Haizaki Shogo left, Satsuki Momoi couldn't help but smile. Fang Jilai looked at Satsuki Momoi and asked, Why are you laughing? Satsuki Momoi narrowed her eyes slightly and put a smile on her face. I just think that Haizaki is so honest in front of you. He is not like this in front of others. Lai, Tell me, what exactly did you do? Fang Jilai touched his nose and didn't know where to start. Well, what did you do? Did you get a good deal? Satsuki Momoi's smile froze, and then she suddenly laughed. Ha! It turns out it's because of this, but it looks like Lai's style. Fang Jilai retorted in a low voice. No way. I am not a violent person. Satsuki Momoi covered her mouth and snickered, looked at Fang Jilai, and asked, Yeah. Chapter 102, Beautiful Country. If that's the case, then why did Lai's first reaction when playing against Mingchang be to take action off the court? Fang Jilai hesitated, because at that time he only thought that fighting violence with violence was a good way, and didn't think too much about it. Suddenly, Fang Jilai remembered that since he came here, all the people he met who made Fang Jilai unhappy. Fang Jilai's last thought was to beat others up after school. This made Fang Jilai couldn't help but doubt himself. Am I really a violent person? Satsuki Momoi looked at Fang Jilai's silent expression and suddenly smiled. Actually, I don't think what Lai did was wrong. I just hope that you can protect yourself. While talking, Satsuki Momoi held Fang Jilai's hand and whispered, No matter what you do, I will follow you. Fang Jilai felt the warmth in his hands and the gentle words in his ears, and the corners of his mouth unconsciously raised. Thank you, yeah. Satsuki Momoi smiled sweetly and followed Fang Jilai's steps to find the last person. Kuroko Tetsuya. Built in Hongsun? Sorry, no need to look for it, because the day after tomorrow he will go to Beautiful Country with Fang Jilai. Kuroko Tetsuya was also confused by Fang Jilai's sudden invitation. He walked up to Fang Jilai and said, Classmate Jilai. Fang Jilai was still in love with Satsuki Momoi when she was suddenly startled by Kuroko Tetsuya's voice. When did you come? I didn't even notice you. To be honest, Kuroko Tetsuya is the only one that Fang Jilai finds difficult, because if Fang Jilai doesn't take it seriously, he might not notice Kuroko Tetsuya. Just like just now, Fang Jilai's attention was all on Satsuki Momoi, and he didn't even notice the arrival of Kuroko Tetsuya. After Kuroko Tetsuya arrived, Fang Jilai also told him about his upcoming departure. Kuroko Tetsuya rarely showed a shocked expression, but soon Kuroko Tetsuya accepted the news that Fang Jilai was leaving. Fang Jilai didn't have any requests for Kuroko Tetsuya. After all, he was the only person in the whole drama who had not turned black, and he even brought back the blackened person. Facing such a person, Fang Jilai didn't say much. After telling Kuroko Tetsuya the news, he left with Satsuki Momoi. Since then, Teik's teammates Fang Jilai have all met and asked for help. The rest is up to the will of the world. Fang Jilai can only do so much. The next day, everyone in Teik came to the airport to bid farewell to Fang Jilai. Satsuki Momoi cried in her mother's arms. Fang Jilai was talking with Teik and others. King Feng Dahue's eyes turned red, and he punched Fang Jilai's chest. Alai, I will definitely defeat you. Don't waste your training in the United States. Fang Jilai smiled and nodded. Don't worry, Ada. I will definitely be wasted. Training? I will train you. Akashi Sidro looked at Fang Jilai with a smile and said softly, We are waiting for you to come back. Fang Jilai smiled and nodded. Suddenly, a choking sound came out. Everyone turned to look at Atsushi Murasakibara. Midorima Shintarō immediately avoided. Murasakibara, why are you wiping your tears on my clothes? Atsushi Murasakibara cried and said, Because you are the closest to me, green boy. Haizaki Shogo looked at Atsushi Murasakibara with a strange expression. No, why are you crying? Atsushi Murasakibara turned his head and said, I can't bear to leave Fangzi. Fang Jilai smiled helplessly and agreed to everyone. Everyone, see you in high school. I hope that when I come back to high school, you will have made progress. Everyone nodded. Aomine Daiki patted his chest and promised, Don't worry, Alai. We will definitely work hard. I want to defeat you. Fang Jilai smiled and nodded. That's it, everyone, I'm leaving first. Fang Jilai shook his hand at everyone. Everyone in Teik looked at Fang Jilai's back, their eyes a little red. Aomine Daiki said without emotion, Alai is gone, Satsuki is gone, even Nijimura Senpai is gone, and now we're the only ones left. Akashi Sidro wiped his red eyes and said, "Let's go, train hard, and win the national championship in the next 2 years. Don't let Jilai look down on us." King Feng Dahue smiled and shouted with everyone, "Yes." Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi followed his father to the private plane. Looking at Hongtsun Zuzu, who was already sitting on the plane, Fang Jilai said, "Senior Hongtsun, why don't you say goodbye?" Hongtsun Xiaozao smiled at the end. "No, I'm afraid I'll feel uncomfortable after seeing it." Fang Jilai was stunned for a moment, then smiled slightly. "Yes, it will indeed be uncomfortable, but I believe we will be back soon." Nijimura Shizo nodded, looked out the window of the plane, looked at the Sakura country getting smaller and smaller in his eyes, and couldn't help but sigh. "I'll be back soon." After arriving in the United States, when Fang Jilai got off the plane, the first thing he saw was his mother Yushiyu. Yushiyu was wearing a black jacket, black trousers, black hair, and black sunglasses. Dressed in black, one can't help but think of a female gang boss. Fang Jilai walked up to his mother and said, "Mom." Yushiyu took off his sunglasses, revealing tender eyes that didn't match her clothes. Yushiyu looked at his son and kept pulling Fang Jilai back and forth, observing Fang Jilai. "You've grown up, Xiaolai. You're actually so tall." Yushiyu's attention suddenly noticed Satsuki Momoi next to Fang Jilai, and he said, "You are Rai's girlfriend Satsuki Momoi, right?" Satsuki Momoi immediately became restrained and spoke intermittently. "Hello, Aunt." Yushiyu touched Satsuki Momoi's head and said softly, "Don't be nervous, since Xiaolai has approved you. We parents won't say anything more. And if you can follow Xiaolai all the way here, it also shows that you have Xiaolai in your heart." After this series of operations by Yushiyu, Satsuki Momoi finally stopped being nervous and started chatting with Yushiyu. Fang Gaoxian spread his hands. His expression seemed to be saying, "Your mother is like this. She has completely forgotten both of us." Fang Jilai rolled his eyes and asked Fang Gaoxian to remind him through lip language. Fang Gaoxian had no choice but to cough twice. But just these two sounds made Yushiyu turn around suddenly. "What are you talking about? Didn't you see me talking about business?" Fang Gaoxian's airs disappeared in an instant, and his tone became weaker. "Honey, let's talk when we get home. It's inconvenient to stand here now." Only then did Yushiyu react, took the three of them to the car prepared in advance, and drove home. Chapter 103. What do you think happened to my mother? 1 week later, Fang Jilai completely settled down in the United States. During this period, he followed his father to participate in many activities. The heir of the Fang family was also spread among top people. Many senior officials went to the Fang family to give gifts, and some even brought their daughters to the Fang family to try to negotiate matchmaking. But after seeing Satsuki Momoi, they gave up. But soon they reacted again and started sending Satsuki Momoi things. This made Fang Jilai feel very explosive. Fang Jilai didn't want to face this situation, so he walked out with Satsuki Momoi, leaving Fang Gaoxian alone to face it. Fang Gaoxian has long been accustomed to these scenes, and it is easy to deal with them. Rather than dealing with them, it is better to say that the senior management is trying to please Fang Gaoxian. Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi got into the family security car and headed to the city. Then they strolled on the street, admiring the scene that was completely different from the Sakura country. There are white people, black people, and yellow people here, and everyone is busy with life. Fang Jilai held Satsuki Momoi's hand and walked slowly down the street. The security guard followed the two men in civilian clothes. When passing by a baseball field, Fang Jilai was attracted by the noise inside. Fang Jilai looked inside and saw that the field was surrounded by spectators. The basketball atmosphere here is very strong, and a wonderful goal on the field can make the audience excited, which is completely different from Sakura country. Fang Jilai looked at the blocked field in front of him and the reaction of the spectators. It was not difficult to imagine that there must be a very powerful person playing ball in the field at this moment. Fang Jilai suddenly became interested and walked inside with Satsuki Momoi. The security guards came out in time. Two tall security guards squeezed a way out for Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi, allowing them to enter the viewing position. As soon as he entered, Fang Jilai saw a familiar figure. On the court at this moment, a black man with a rough appearance, tall body, strong muscles, and short white hair was violently torturing another player. The black man dribbled the ball straight into the paint and poured the basketball into the basket. Keep the basket shaking. After the dunk, everyone around him jumped up excitedly and screamed loudly. Many people rushed up and bumped chests with the black man to celebrate, and some even took off their clothes and started shaking them wildly. The scene was very chaotic, but it could not help but make people excited. Fang Jilai is no exception. Such an atmosphere makes it difficult for Fang Jilai to suppress his heart. After the celebration, the black man looked at the audience and shouted in a rough voice, "Is there anyone else who wants to play?" The words were spoken in English, but they were all written in Chinese for easy reading. "Thank you for your understanding. The audience looked at me and I looked at you, but no one chose to play. Some people who came alone didn't think it was a big deal and started to shout, 'Come on, everyone! Is there no one else? Are you all useless and don't dare to come on?' But he was quickly retorted, 'You loser. If you have the ability, go ahead. If you don't dare, just watch carefully or go home crying to your mother to drink milk.' Ha ha ha." I have to say that although the atmosphere in the beautiful country is good, there's also a lot of trash talk in the wild courts. After the black man saw that he didn't want to play and was about to leave, Fang Jilai walked out. "I'll do it." The black man turned his head in confusion, looked at Fang Jilai, who was much shorter than him, and said in confusion, "Are you coming? Ha! You look like a junior high school student." The audience also laughed after seeing who was coming. "Ha! Junior high school students come challenge Shibuya. This is the biggest joke I have seen this year. Courage is so good. Little kid, don't go home to find your mother if you lose. No, your mother may be gone. Ha ha." When Fang Jilai heard someone insulting his mother, he turned around suddenly and stared at the black man who spoke with horrifying eyes. The black man's laughter stopped suddenly because he felt a strong sense of uneasiness. Fang Jilai's body exuded a huge sense of oppression, and the sense of oppression swept across the audience. All the audience shut their mouths in this sense of oppression, because a feeling of being targeted by a beast swept through their bodies instantly. Jason Thebe is no exception. That's right, the person on the field is none other than the boss in the original movie version, Jason Thibault, the center forward of the explosive Neck Dragons, who is known as having the body of God. Jason Sieber looked at Fang Jilai, and a feeling of being locked by a predator instantly emerged in his heart. Jason Shibuya looked at Fang Jilai in shock, feeling very surprised. This feeling wildness. It's actually a wildness stronger than me. Jason Shibuya stirred up a storm in his heart. Ever since he awakened to the wild nature of Tyrannosaurus Rex, he had never encountered anything wild that could make him feel scared. Because the wild nature of Tyrannosaurus Rex has determined that Jason Thibault is one of the top wild men in the world. But now on this field court, Jason Thibault felt the aura of a predator more powerful than the Tyrannosaurus Rex in the body of a junior high school student. This made Jason Thibault feel as if he was in a dream. Other side, the black man who was stared at by Fang Jilai was already sweating. He was frightened by Fang Jilai's eyes. In normal times, the black man might have apologized and ran away, but now on the court, a group of people looked at him like this, making him afraid to do so. Fang Jilai stared at the black man fiercely and said in a deep voice, "You just said, what happened to my mother?" The black man wanted to shake his head, but seeing everyone looking at him, he gritted his teeth and shouted loudly, "I said your mother is gone. Collapse." The black man was punched and knocked to the ground. The friend next to the black man saw this scene and immediately stepped forward to attack Fang Jilai, but Fang Jilai threw him over his shoulder and threw him to the ground. The audience did not mind the excitement and applauded and cheered. Suddenly, 5 black cars drove over. Everyone looked in the direction of the car. Everyone watched as more than 30 people got out of 5 cars. Everyone was wearing black suits, black sunglasses, and professional headphones in their ears. Everyone is very strong and exudes a fierce momentum. If you pull out anyone here, you'll be able to beat 10 people 1-to-1 or even more. The audience saw the logo on the suits of more than 30 people and said in surprise, "Oh my God, the Fang family security company. Why are the Fang family security guards here? I don't know. Usually it's amazing to see just one, but now there are more than 30. The audience was shocked as they witnessed more than 30 security guards in suits walking up to Fang Jilai. Just when everyone was confused, more than 30 people bent down and shouted, "Master Fang." Chapter 104. Jason Thibber. The audience looked at the bent Fang family security guard with shocked expressions on their faces. Jason Shibuya was the same, with his pupils shrunken and his mouth wide open. He couldn't believe the scene in front of him. The young man in front of him who made him feel scared was actually the heir of the Fang family. Jason Shibuya didn't even think that he was just playing basketball, and he didn't expect to meet a real big shot. At this time, the black man who cursed was also scared, and the 30 security guard of the Fang family all called Fang Jilai Master Fang. Then wouldn't it be that he just scolded Fang Jilai's mother? Isn't this Mr. Tai Sui's attempt to stir up trouble and seek death? The black man's friend reacted quickly, got up, and knelt on the ground to beg for mercy. "Master Fang, I don't know this person. I just wanted to go up and take a look, but you mistakenly thought I was helping him. I hope you don't misunderstand, Master Fang." The black man lay on the ground and looked at his friend in disbelief. The black man pointed at him tremblingly and said, "Jack, you." Unexpectedly, Jack suddenly turned around and roared, "Shut up, you idiot. I don't even know you." The black man was very angry when he saw this. "Since you are unkind, then blame me for being unjust." The black man quickly got up and knelt on the ground, pointed at Jack and said, "Master Fang, his name is Jack, and he called me to say those words. I was wronged, Master Fang." "Shut up. I don't even know you." The two started arguing instantly. Fang Jilai didn't want to care about the quarrel between the two. He only knew that the person in front of him had insulted his mother. Fang Jilai waved, and a security guard ran over instantly, lowered his head, and said, "Young Master Fang." Fang Jilai said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "They are too noisy." As soon as these words came out, the Fang family security guard was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said a few words to the others. Other security guards of the Fang family immediately picked up the black man and his friend and took them into the car. The black man and Jack struggled and begged for mercy. "No, Mr. Fang, I was wrong. I was wrong." But Fang Jilai did not forgive him. No matter how hard the two struggled, Fang Jilai did not turn around. After the Fang family security took away the two people, more than 10 people were left on the field to protect Fang Jilai's safety, while the others were hiding in the dark. Just when the audience was hesitating whether to take the opportunity to leave, Fang Jilai spoke. "Now, let's challenge each other." After hearing this, the audience stayed one after another. After all, it is difficult to see the heir of the Fang family once in a lifetime, let alone watch the heir of the Fang family play one-on-one. Jason Shibuya swallowed, and his eyes changed when he looked at Fang Jilai. If the way he looked at Fang Jilai at first was looking at a child, the way he looked at Fang Jilai now was like looking at a big Buddha that made him dare not make mistakes. Jason Shibuya looked worriedly at the more than 10 Fang family security guards around him. Others might not know, but Jason Shibuya knew. Each of the more than 10 Fang family security guards all wore guns. Fang Jilai noticed Jason Shibuya's eyes and knew what he was worried about. So he said, "Don't worry, it's just a one-on-one fight. Nothing will be done to you." Jason Shibuya hesitated and said, "Really?" Fang Jilai smiled and nodded. "Of course it's true, but in a one-on-one challenge, you have to have some luck, right?" Jason Shibuya was a little nervous when he heard this. He was afraid that Fang Jilai would kill him if he lost the duel. Don't want a lottery." Fang Jilai seemed to understand what Jason Shibuya was worried about. So he continued, "Don't worry, I won't do anything to you. If you lose, you just need to promise me something. If I lose, how about I give you money? You must be very happy now. Are you short of money?" Jason Shibuya swallowed hard. He was indeed short of money now. Now that this opportunity was placed in front of him, he was very hesitant because he didn't know what Fang Jilai's request was. He could only gamble now. Jason Thebe is in a tangle. Fang Jilai did not urge him and waited quietly for Jason Shibuya to make a choice. If Jason Shibuya made the right choice, then Fang Jilai would be willing to give him a thumbs up. If the choice was wrong, then Jason Sieber could only blame his luck. Not good anymore. Jason Sieber thought for a long time and finally made a decision. Beat. A smile appeared on Fang Jilai's face. That's right. After finishing speaking, Fang Jilai passed the basketball to Jason Thibault, allowing Jason Thibault to attack first. Jason Sieber didn't refuse. After all, he was on the winning side now. He would be really stupid if he refused. Jason Thibault held the ball with both hands and immediately made an offensive stance. Fang Jilai half-crouched to defend Jason Thibault, waiting for Jason Thibault's attack. Jason Sieber felt the oppression coming from Fang Jilai, and the fear in his heart came again. This feeling again, what is his wildness? Jason Thibault knew that Fang Jilai's wildness was far superior to his own, so Jason Thibault did not underestimate Fang Jilai and was ready to compete with all his strength. Jason Sieber took a deep breath. A violent aura emerged from his body, and an ancient beast seemed to appear behind him. A Tyrannosaurus Rex. Hey, what does this feel like? Is this tyrannical sense of oppression Sieber's true strength? The audience felt this violent atmosphere and exclaimed one after another. For the first time, they felt Jason Thibault's true strength. Fang Jilai also felt this momentum inexplicably. Huh? I can actually feel the change in the atmosphere. Good guy. Fang Jilai also knew at this time that Jason Thibault must have turned on his wildness, so his defensive attitude became more serious. After Jason Thibault started his wild game, he kicked the ball hard and started attacking. Jason Thibault may seem tall, but in fact he is not small at all. His speed does not slow down because of his size, but is very fast. Jason Thibault suddenly broke through from the right side and rushed towards the basket. Fang Jilai followed up instantly and blocked Jason Thibault's attack. Jason Sieber trembled slightly. Following, Jason Thibault's rhythm was interrupted by Fang Jilai's sudden appearance. But he did not want to give up this opportunity, so he suddenly exerted his strength to engage in physical confrontation with Fang Jilai. Collapse. A heavy feeling of collision came out. After all, Jason Thibault was a center with the body of God. This was the first time that Fang Jilai met someone who slightly beat him in strength. Fang Jilai was slightly knocked back by Jason Thibault. Jason Thibault reacted after a physical confrontation. What on earth did I do? That's the heir to the Fang family. Chapter 105 Fang Jilai's wild, true-faced Jason Sieber cursed himself secretly. What on earth had he done? Just now his mind got hot, and he actually used physical resistance against the heir of the other family. It's okay that Fang Jilai was able to bear it. If Fang Jilai hadn't been able to bear it and got injured, he might have been completely destroyed. After being frightened, Jason Sieber finally reacted. No, it doesn't seem to have been knocked open. Only then did Jason Sieber realize that he had not knocked Fang Jilai away just now. He had only knocked him away by a step. This also shows that Fang Jilai's power is extremely terrifying to ordinary people. Although Fang Jilai's strength will be smaller than his current self, don't forget that Fang Jilai is only in the first grade of junior high school. Is this the heir to the Fang family? Jason Sieber was shocked. Although he knew that he was stronger than Fang Jilai, Jason Sieber did not intend to use his body to fight again. First, because Fang Jilai's strength is only slightly smaller than his own. Even if he uses physical resistance, the effect will be minimal. Second, Fang Jilai is the heir to the Fang family. There was no other way. Jason Thibault had no choice but to move to the outside and attack again. Jason Thibault not only has power, he is also very good at dribbling. Jason Thibault is constantly dribbling to find rhythm while constantly making breakthroughs. But he soon found out. Why? Can't break through. Jason Thibault found that no matter how he attacked, he could not break through Fang Jilai's defense, which made Jason Thibault feel extremely shocked. Now he is unable to break through, and the effect of physical confrontation is minimal. More importantly, he dare not engage in physical confrontation. Now he is in a dilemma. He doesn't want to lose the game. He wants money, but he can't find a way to win. Jason Thibault's outside shot was a little better when no one was marking him, but Fang Jilai was very close at this time and gave him no chance at all. Jason Thibault couldn't find a way to deal with it and could only watch Fang Jilai steal the basketball. Shibua was stolen. The feeling of oppression is too strong. Just looking at it makes me feel oppressed. Yes, if it were me, it would be a luxury to even dribble the ball under this kind of defense. The audience was talking a lot, and everyone felt incredible about Fang Jilai. A first-year player could actually completely suppress Jason Thibault. On the field, Fang Jilai frowned slightly after stealing the ball and returned the basketball to Jason Thibault. No, he gave a basketball back to Shibou. Is this looking down on him? Oh my God, this is the first time I've seen someone completely suppress Shibou. After Jason Thibault caught the basketball, he wondered, you? Fang Jilai interrupted. I don't want you to hold back. Use your strength. If something happens, I won't cause trouble for you. Don't worry. Jason Thibault picked up the basketball and hesitated. Really? Fang Jilai nodded. Really? I see. When Jason Shibua saw Fang Jilai nodding, he no longer held back and decided to fight with his body. Jason Thibault took a deep breath and once again unleashed his wildness, and a violent atmosphere erupted on the court. Feeling that his strength had increased, Jason Thibault began to attack fiercely. When attacking, he no longer held back his hands and began to use physical confrontation to engage in hand-to-hand combat with Fang Jilai. Collapse! 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 After all, Jason Thibault is a few years older than Fang Jilai, and so is his physique. He confronted Fang Jilai step by step and reached the basket with difficulty. After reaching the basket, Jason Thibault was preparing to dunk. A strong sense of oppression came, followed by extreme fear. Jason Thibault was shocked. Here it comes again. This feeling. Jason Thibault knew that this was the feeling coming from Fang Lai's wild side. Next second, snap. A crisp sound of the ball was heard, and Jason Thibault's basketball was knocked from his hand. Jason Thibault stood blankly under the basket, looking at Fang Jilai in horror, because he saw waves of black shadows emerging from Fang Jilai's body. The black shadows instantly became huge, even covering the entire basketball court. The audience also discovered this scene and said in horror, what is this? Why do I feel so scared? No, I don't know. The audience slowly opened their eyes as they watched the black shadow in the sky. A pair of huge black blood pupils stared at everyone, as if they were looking at a group of ants. Jason Thibault's body was shaking constantly, and his wildness disappeared instantly, just like a prey that was targeted by a hunter and chose to hide to save his life. His eyes were wide open and his mouth was wide open, because in other people's eyes, the wildness was a dark shadow, but in his eyes, a real face appeared. Jason Shibua murmured unconsciously, his tone full of horror. Dragon, dragon. How is that possible? How can a wild animal be a dragon? Jason Shibua was deeply shocked. The scene in his eyes looked like a real dragon. The real dragon was completely black, with huge blood-red pupils staring at him. There was no emotion in the eyes, only a chilling air. Jason Thibault really couldn't believe that someone's wildness could actually be a black dragon. No wonder you feel this way. No one can remain calm in front of such a predator. Jason Shibua muttered that he had no hope of winning now. The mere appearance of this black dragon had already made Jason Shibua unable to move, let alone defend. Maybe the person who saw the shadow was not strong enough to see Fang Jilai's wild, true face. To be precise, it was a kind of protection. If a weak person directly sees Fang Jilai's black dragon, even waking up may be a luxury. It can be said that Jason Thibault is the first person in the world to see the wild, true face of Fang Jilai. It is precisely because of this that he was so shocked. Jason Thibault shook his head mockingly. How can we win in front of this guy? Jason Thibault gave up the game, walked up to Fang Jilai, and said, I lost. Tell me what you want. Fang Jilai looked at Jason Thibault, who suddenly lowered his head and felt a little baffled. Jason Thibault gave up before the game even started? Isn't it the end of the competition yet? Why admit defeat? I told you, don't give in just because of my identity. Jason Shibuya was confused and didn't know what Fang Jilai meant by his words. Damn, are you letting yourself go? I try my best. How can I fight you as soon as a black dragon comes out? How can I fight? Chapter 106 Nash Goldo Jason Shibuya only dared to say these words in his heart, but he still spoke respectfully with an expression on his face. Young Master Fang, you are too wild. I'm indeed no match for you. After saying that, Jason Shibuya lowered his head and admitted defeat. Fang Jilai heard Jason Shibuya mention wildness, and he immediately figured it out. It must have been that he suddenly became serious, which caused Jason Shibuya to imagine his wildness. Looking at the audience's reaction, Fang Jilai also knew that they should also see his wildness. Fang Jilai suddenly became a little interested. Jason Shibuya actually admitted that his wildness was too strong. In other words, his wildness could crush the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Can you tell me what my wildness is? Jason Shibuya was stunned and complained in his heart. No, you don't even know your own wildness? But he still answered Fang Jilai's question honestly. A black dragon. A huge black dragon. Fang Jilai was surprised when he heard that his wild nature was a black dragon. Dragon. A legendary creature. No wonder it can suppress Jason Shibuya's Tyrannosaurus Rex. If Tyrannosaurus Rex is the world's top beast, then the dragon is truly the #1 beast in the world. No, it can no longer be called a beast, but a mythical beast. Since it is a mythical beast, Fang Jilai's wild nature needs to be renamed, called divinity. In his excitement, Fang Jilai remembered what he should do. Okay, since you have admitted defeat, you must fulfill your agreement now. Jason Shibuya swallowed hard, closed his eyes, and waited for Fang Jilai's request. Fang Jilai patted Jason Shibuya on the shoulder and said, "Follow me." Jason Shibuya opened his eyes suddenly, a little confused. "Ah? What?" Fang Jilai explained. "I'm planning to set up a basketball team to compete in the street ball circle of this beautiful country. I may compete in the professional arena in the future. You are my first choice." Jason Shibuya was still confused. He was interrupted by Fang Jilai just as he was about to speak. "I don't want to hear unnecessary words from you. This is a request, not a negotiation. Someone will come to you later, so just wait patiently." After saying that, Fang Jilai turned around and left, taking Satsuki Momoi with him. When the two left, the Fang family security also turned around and left together. Only a group of surprised spectators and a dazed Jason Shibuya were left. After walking around the beautiful country, Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi both felt a little tired, so they got in the car and prepared to go home. On the way, Satsuki Momoi asked, Lai, why do you suddenly want to create a basketball team?" Fang Jilai turned his head, grabbed Satsuki Momoi's hand, and said, "Let's do it on a whim. We must find some fun in the days ahead." In fact, Fang Jilai did not want to create a team at the beginning. It was just after seeing Jason Shibuya on the field today that he suddenly had the idea to create a team to relieve his fatigue in the future. "Lin Bo, please help me investigate a person." The man driving the car, Uncle Lin, was a housekeeper of the Fang family. After learning about the young master's request, Uncle Lin immediately replied, "Master, who do you want to investigate?" "Nash Gordo." Is this what Lin Bo was talking about? Fang Jilai looked at the tall building in front of him and asked aloud. Satsuki Momoi looked at the messages on her phone and said, "Yes, it's right here. Uncle Fang has already made arrangements. We just need to go up." Fang Jilai nodded and walked into the building with Satsuki Momoi. It turns out that Nash Goldo is the son of a senior executive who wants to cooperate with the Fang family, and he can also be regarded as a rich second generation. I couldn't find it after checking the information. For the development of the plot, I had to set it up privately. Please don't comment. Fang Jilai reached the highest building without any hindrance and entered the room prepared in advance. After pushing open the door, Nash's father immediately stood up and walked to Fang Jilai with a smile on his face. "Master Fang, are you here?" Fang Jilai nodded and looked at Nash Goldo, who had his legs on the table and looked unconvinced. When Nash's father saw this, he immediately shouted, "What are you doing? Mr. Fang came to see you specially. Is this your attitude?" Nash Goldo spat aside. With disdain on his face, I don't know him. Why did you call me here in such a hurry, just to let me meet this brat? Nash's father suddenly became angry and cursed. What a brat. This is the heir to the Fang family. Nash Goldo also stood up and roared. You are afraid of the Fang family. I am not afraid. Nash's father was so angry that when he was about to lift the bench to teach Nash Goldo a lesson, Fang Jilai stopped him. Uncle, please go out first, and I'll have a chat with him. Nash's father smiled and said, Let Fang Xiao laugh. You guys talk first. You guys talk first. Fang Jilai smiled and nodded. After Nash's father went out, Nash Goldo said, cut disdainfully, then sat on the bench again, put his feet on the table, and said, Tell me, kid, what do you want from me? Fang Jilai felt Nash Goldo's attitude and murmured, As expected, I see you are very unhappy. After saying that, Fang Jilai rushed forward and kicked Nash Goldo away. Satsuki Momoi covered her mouth and quickly called Fang's security downstairs. After Nash Goldo was attacked, he stood up with a look of dissatisfaction. You guy. After saying that, Nash Goldo rushed forward and fought with Fang Jilai. After all, Fang Jilai was a professional boxer in his previous life, which was more than enough to deal with amateurs like Nash Goldo. Fang Jilai kept pumping his fist while dodging. The fist landed accurately on Nash Goldo's face. Fang Jilai deliberately controlled the force and did not make Nash Goldo unconscious, but also did not make Nash Goldo feel better. Nash Goldo felt extremely uncomfortable at the moment. He couldn't hit Fang Jilai and couldn't hide. He could only be beaten passively. Finally, after being punched more than a dozen times, a group of people rushed into the conference room. Nash Goldo looked at this group of people and was stunned, because everyone in this group of people is fully armed, holding assault rifles in their hands, and they look like special forces. Nash Goldo had never seen this formation before, and he was stunned on the spot. The group of people breathed a sigh of relief after seeing Fang Lai, and then looking at Nash Goldo, whose face was covered with scars and bleeding. The person at the front of the group saluted Fang Jilai and shouted, Young Master Fang, we are late. Fang Jilai nodded. It's okay. It doesn't matter if you come or not. He can't beat me. The leader shook his head. No, we have to be responsible for Mr. Fang. If he attacks your fist with his face, we will be criticized. Chapter 107, The Extremely Ferocious Black Dragon. Nash Goldo looked shocked, not to mention that this group of special forces called Fang Jilai and Fang Xiao. Just that sentence of hitting the fist with the face made Nash Goldo feel ridiculous. I was violently beaten unilaterally by Fang Jilai, but in your case, it turned into a fist attack with my face. Nash's father rushed in quickly, looked at the black muzzle of the gun, and swallowed. But for the sake of his son, he still bit the bullet and said, Young Master Fang, this traitor is ignorant. Let him go. After saying that, Nash's father walked up to Nash Goldo and asked, How did you do this? Nash Goldo was also a little panicked at this moment and asked in a low voice, Father, what is going on? Nash's father said angrily, You know how to call me father now? Don't you know how strong the Fang family is? Nash Goldo shook his head. He really didn't know. He just knew that his father suddenly called him back and said he was meeting the heir of the Fang family. Nash Goldo had never heard of the name of the Fang family before and thought he was just the son of a friend of his father, a minor character. But now he realizes that this is not a minor character. This is a giant Buddha. Nash's father was stunned and scolded. Didn't you read the message I sent you? Nash Goldo shook his head. No. Nash's father was so angry that his lungs exploded. His son had nothing to do except eat, drink, and have fun. The only good thing was to play basketball. The rest were all bad habits. Originally, I wanted to explain it to him on the phone, but after just a few words on the phone, Nash Goldo hung up. Then Nash's father made several more phone calls, but Nash Goldo hung up on them all. He had no choice but to send text messages and let his son read them. After sending the text messages, Nash's father made a few phone calls. After Nash Gold finally picked up one of them, he immediately asked to read the text messages. Nash Goldo also agreed on the phone. But who knew? Nash Goldo didn't even read it. Okay, now the Fang family has been completely offended. What was originally thought to be a happy event has now become a formal event. Nash's father turned around and wanted to plead with his son, but he was interrupted by Fang Jilai, who looked at Nash Goldo and said, "Honest." Nash Goldo nodded repeatedly. Fang Jilai pulled up a bench and sat down, then spoke slowly. "Wouldn't it be better if you were honest earlier? You have to be beaten." Nash Goldo was about to cry, but had no tears. If he could go back in time, he would definitely listen to what his father said. If he had done that, Nash Goldo would be sitting on a stool and talking quietly with Fang Jilai at this moment, instead of being like now, with a black muzzle pointing at him and not daring to move, listening to Fang Jilai's speech. "I came here today for one thing. I set up a basketball team. Now I'm short of people. I've taken a fancy to you. Will you come? Kulme. I will definitely come to the team created by Mr. Fang." Nash Goldo nodded repeatedly without any hesitation. Fang Jilai nodded happily, patted Nash Goldo's shoulder, then turned around and left with Satsuki Momoi. A group of Fang family security guards also left here. After everyone left, Nash Goldo breathed a sigh of relief. Nash's father looked at Nash Goldo and said angrily, "From now on, answer my phone properly." Nash Goldo nodded. "I know." Nash Goldo had already accepted his fate. He had no choice but to agree due to the situation. Nash Goldo was already prepared for the team to be extremely weak, but on the appointed day, Nash Goldo's mind changed. In the basketball gym built by the Fang family, Nash Goldo looked at Jason Sieber, who was tall and exuding a strong sense of oppression, and secretly said in surprise, "It seems like it's not bad." Nash Goldo looked at the other three players. The three players are two blacks and one white. One black has a bald head, the other has a short head with a white headband on his head, and the white has short yellow hair. The momentum of the three of them didn't look weak either. Fang Jilai actually invited Hongsuan Shiozao, but he was rejected by Hongsuan Shiozao because he couldn't take care of his father. With no other choice, Fang Jilai had to find the members of the neck-exploding dragon team in the original work. The original small forward Allen became Fang Jilai's substitute. Fang Jilai looked at Nash Goldo's arrival and said, "Everyone is here." Nash Goldo slowly said, "What should we do next?" Fang Jilai smiled slightly. "What to do?" Fang Jilai picked up the basketball on the side and said to the 5 people, "One person will compete with me in a one-on-one match. If he scores a goal in my hand, he will be rewarded with $10,000 US. After the 5 people listened, except for Nash Goldo, the other 4 people showed longing eyes. The 4 of them are all preparing to have an all-out duel with Fang Jilai because of money. Nash Goldo chose to observe Fang Jilai's strength first, although he joined Fang Jilai's team. In the sport of basketball, Nash Goldo only recognized people who could beat him. No. How is it possible? Nash Goldo looked at the field in surprise, his eyes full of disbelief, because 4 people were already lying on the court at this time, including Jason Thibault. All 4 of them collapsed on the ground. Nash Goldo couldn't believe his eyes. In a one-on-one battle just now, Fang Jilai effortlessly eliminated Alan, Zach, and Nico. Nash Goldo was slightly surprised when he saw the 3 of them blocked, because the strength of the 3 was not very strong, but Nash Goldo couldn't do it as easily as Fang Jilai. In fact, from here on, Nash Goldo has already recognized Fang Jilai as the captain. What really shocked him was the duel between Fang Jilai and Jason Thibault. The duel between the two completely shocked Nash Goldo. Nash Goldo was shocked because of the aura that Jason Thibault exuded, but then Jason Thibault burst out wild again. When Jason Thibault burst out wildly, Nash Goldo thought about it. If he were to play, he would have to use Eye of the Devil to barely win, because Jason Thiebaud's wildness is so terrifying. This wildness, Nash Goldo swore, was the most ferocious wildness he had ever seen. But soon, this idea was broken because he also saw Fang Jilai's wildness. An extremely ferocious black dragon. Chapter 108 Divinity. After seeing Fang Jilai's wildness, Nash Goldo's worldview seemed to collapse. Someone actually owns this legendary creature. Nash Goldo didn't know how to use words to describe the scene that happened in front of him. He only felt that he was unable to move even one step under the gaze of this black dragon. He could only stand there blankly, as if a prey was waiting for a predator to kill him. Fang Jilai put away his wildness, turned to look at Nash Goldo, and said, "Come on, you are the last one." Nash Goldo then resumed his actions, swallowed his saliva, and his eyes changed when he looked at Fang Jilai, as if he was looking at death. There is no other way. Nash Goldo can only go on the court to prepare for a duel. Fang Jilai passed the ball to Nash Goldo and signaled, "Take the ball and show your full strength. Otherwise, you will have no chance." Nash Goldo swallowed, took a deep breath, and prepared to attack. "It seems I don't dare to hide anymore." Nash Goldo was shocked and then opened his Eye of the Demon King, and his future actions instantly echoed in his mind. When observing with Eye of the Devil, Nash Goldo was surprised to find that he could easily break through Fang Lai's defense every time he attacked in the future, which made Nash Goldo feel a little incredible. How could this? Nash Goldo was surprised at first, and then became excited. He never doubted his Demon King's eye, since Devil King's eye saw that he would easily break through Fang Jilai's defense. It must be so. Nash Goldo suppressed the excitement in his heart, because he did not dare to offend the person in front of him. He started acting according to the future played by Eye of the Demon King, and prepared to make a breakthrough. Nash Goldo dribbled the ball and made a change of direction. After switching the basketball from his right hand to his left hand immediately connected with a behind-the-back turn. In the future scene by Eye of the Demon King, Fang Jilai was completely shaken by this action. But when Nash Goldo turned around, he was surprised to find that Fang Lai actually stopped in front of him. How is that possible? Nash Goldo was shocked. This was completely different from what he saw in Eye of the Demon King. In Eye of the Demon King, Fang Jilai had already broken through and scored a goal at this time. But in reality, Nash Goldo was completely stopped by Fang Jilai. After Fang Jilai stopped Nash Goldo, he immediately stretched out his left hand to slap Nash Goldo's basketball. Nash Goldo reacted and immediately dribbled the basketball from behind his right hand to his left hand, then suddenly stepped back, widening the distance from Fang Jilai. After pulling away, Nash Goldo seemed to have discovered something terrifying and looked at Fang Jilai in front of him with horrified eyes. Several people on the sidelines were also surprised. Escaped? That person actually avoided Mr. Fang's steal. Alan couldn't help but exclaimed. Jason Thibert stared at the two people on the court. To be precise, he stared at Nash Goldo because he felt a sense of crisis in Nash Goldo. This person is not simple. On the field, Nash Goldo's heart was already filled with turmoil. How could it be? Why can't my Demon King's eye predict his movements? That's right. The reason why Nash Goldo was so shocked was because Nash Goldo's Eye of the Devil didn't predict Fang Jilai's steal just now. Nash Goldo discovered that his Devil King's eye could not predict Fang Jilai's movements at all. The future you see in your own eyes is one thing, but in reality, it becomes another thing. Now Nash Goldo has to believe the fact that Eye of the Demon King is invalid. Thinking of this, Nash Goldo felt powerless. He had never felt such powerlessness in a person. Continue. Your attack time is coming. Fang Jilai reminded. Nash Goldo's expression changed, and he gritted his teeth and started to attack. He used the Eye of the Demon King unwillingly, watching the future while attacking, but the more he looked at it, the more incredible it became. Impossible. Impossible. Why is this happening? Nash Goldo couldn't believe it, because the future he saw now had changed. If the future he saw before was that he could break through Fang Jilai at will, the future he saw now becomes he will never be able to break through Fang Jilai. Nash Goldo watched the future while attacking, but this time, the future and reality seemed to overlap, and he could no longer break through Fang Jilai's defense. But there was a little change, and he couldn't feel what it was. In this way, Nash Goldo was prevented by Fang Lai until the offensive timeout. Nash Goldo stood there in a daze, looking at the floor with dull eyes. He felt as if his worldview had collapsed. Fang Jilai took the basketball and said to Nash Goldo, "Get ready to defend. I'm going to attack." Nash Goldo nodded dumbly and stood there blankly. Fang Jilai narrowed his eyes and slammed the basketball at Nash Goldo. Wake up! The basketball hit Nash Goldo's head, causing Nash Goldo to regain consciousness. Nash Goldo looked up at Fang Jilai, his eyes full of horror, because Fang Jilai had already activated his divinity at this time. A huge and powerful black dragon appeared behind Fang Jilai. The blood pupil stared at Nash Goldo. Nash Goldo was stared at by the blood pupil, and his body seemed to be petrified, unable to move. The four people on the sidelines looked at Fang Jilai's divinity in horror. Alan swallowed and murmured, "What on earth is going on with this black shadow?" Zack shook his head. "I don't know. I feel like I'm locked by something." The scene in the eyes of the three people was not a black dragon, but a black shadow. The only ones who can see the black dragon on the field are Nash Goldo and Jason Thibault. Jason Shibuya kept murmuring, "The mythical dragon makes people shocked every time they see it." Nico turned his head in confusion and said, "Shibuya, what kind of dragon? Isn't it a black shadow?" Jason Shibuya turned his head stiffly and asked, "You can't see?" Fang Jilai noticed the conversation of several people, turned around and asked, "The scene you saw is different?" As he spoke, the black dragon disappeared, and the huge sense of oppression also disappeared. The five people felt a sense of relief one after another, and then began to take a big breath of air. Fang Jilai continued to ask, "Tell me again the scene you saw." Chapter 109. The team take shape. Alan was the first to adjust and spoke out the scene in his eyes. "I saw a huge black shadow. There was a pair of red eyes on the black shadow's face. He gave me the feeling like an ancient beast. I have never seen such an aura. The beast." After hearing Alan say that he only saw a black shadow, Jason Thibault and Nash Goldo were stunned because what they saw in their eyes was completely different from Alan. Fang Jilai also fell into deep thought because he remembered that Jason Shibuya said before that he saw Fang Jilai's wildness as a huge black dragon. Fang Jilai turned his head and asked, "Jason, Nash, what did you see?" Fang Jilai couldn't wait to know what they saw in their eyes, because Fang Jilai couldn't see his own wildness. He only knows that as long as he is serious in the eyes of outsiders, he will have opened up his wild nature. No, it is his divinity. Jason Sieber said what he saw in his eyes. "What I saw was a black dragon." Nash Goldo nodded and said, "I also saw a black dragon." The three of them were stunned. The three of them looked at me, and I looked at you. They didn't speak for a long time, because all the three of them saw was a dark shadow. At this time, Satsuki Momoi came over and said, "Could it be because of strength? Only strong people can see Lai's wildness, but weak ones can't. Anyway, what I saw was just an ordinary fog. I didn't even see the eyes you mentioned." Several people looked at Satsuki Momoi, who came over. Just when they were confused, Fang Jilai introduced to them, "This is my girlfriend. Her name is Satsuki Momoi." When Nash Goldo and others heard this, they immediately stood up, bowed, and shouted, "Hello, sister-in-law." Satsuki Momoi squinted her eyes and smiled and nodded. Now she can face these scenes calmly. "Okay, everyone, get up. Maybe it's like what Yes said. Only those with strong strength can see my wildness." Jason Shibuya retorted, "Young Master Fang." Fang Jilai raised his hand to signal Jason Shibuya to shut up. "Don't call him Mr. Fang. Call him something else." Jason Shibuya was stunned and asked cautiously, "Then, Brother Lai?" Fang Jilai often hears Haizaki Shogo call this name, so he doesn't feel disgusted. After Jason Sieber discovered that Fang Lai acquiesced to this title, he continued, "Brother, I don't think you can be called wild. A creature in mythology must be called divinity no matter what." When others heard this, they all agreed. "Yes, Brother Lai, you are divine." Fang Jilai smiled angrily after hearing everyone's flattery. "Okay, stop talking, have a good rest, and start formal training tomorrow." Jason Thibault and others shouted, "Yes." The next day, Fang Jilai came over with 2 white people and 1 black man and said to Jason Shibuya and others, "Let me introduce to you. This is Victor Griffith, your future trainer." Fang Jilai pointed at the strong black man beside him and said. Victor took a step forward slightly and said, "Hello, my name is Victor Griffith." Nash Goldo and others nodded, indicating that they knew each other. After speaking, Victor stepped back and waited for Fang Jilai to continue introducing the other two people. Fang Jilai pointed to a white man wearing glasses and said, "His name is Eugene Omar, and he will be your future nutritionist." Eugene took a step forward, bowed slightly, and said politely, "Hello, my name is Eugene Omar." After speaking, Eugene returned to his seat. Fang Lai began to introduce the last white man. "His name is Charlotte Abner, and he will be your professional masseur after training." Charlotte took a step forward and said, "Hello, my name is Charlotte Abner." After introducing the three of them, Fang Jilai introduced Satsuki Momoi. "You all know this person. She will be our consultant from now on, if you make her angry." After hearing this, Nash Goldo and others shook their heads repeatedly and said loudly, "No, Brother Lai, don't worry. My sister-in-law's life is our life. Whoever wants to touch my sister-in-law must step over us first." Fang Jilai nodded with satisfaction. "Okay, then get ready to start training. I'm leaving." After saying that, Fang Jilai turned around and prepared to leave with Satsuki Momoi. Jason Thebe was a little dazed, and he asked, "Brother Leg, aren't you going to train?" Fang Jilai paused and turned his head slightly. "Are you teaching me how to do things?" Jason Thebe suddenly felt a chill rush into his mind. After realizing that he had said the wrong thing, Jason Thebe shook his head repeatedly. "No, no." Fang Jilai then continued to walk outside the arena. As he was leaving, Fang Jilai said calmly, "Whenever you defeat me, come and ask me to train again." Nash Gordo watched Fang Jilai walk to the arena. After Fang Jilai left, Nash Goldo returned to his original appearance, first scolding Jason Thebe, "Idiot, you dare to dictate Lai Ge's life." Jason Thebe knew that he was talking too much, but he was really unhappy with Nash Goldo's tone. "Why do you, a monkey, talk to me?" Nash Goldo smiled sarcastically and looked at Jason Sieber with a playful look. "You are not convinced?" Jason Sieber grabbed Nash Goldo's collar, pulled Nash Goldo up and looked at him. "Monkey, I advise you not to cause trouble." Victor was very conscientious and immediately pulled the two of them away and shouted, "Stop it. Do you want Mr. Fang to be angry?" The two of them immediately became quiet when they heard Fang Jilai's name, but they still stared at each other. Victor smiled strangely when he saw this. "Since there is a conflict, let's resolve it. Things on the basketball court will be resolved by basketball." As soon as these words came out, Jason Shibwa grinned. "That's exactly what I meant." The corners of Nash Goldo's mouth raised slightly. He stretched out his right hand with 5 fingers spread out, grabbed a basketball on the ground, and said, "Then let's try it." When Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi returned home, Fang Gaoxian spoke first. "Xiao Lai, how is the team?" Fang Jilai sat down and picked up the water glass and drank. After drinking, he said, "The members have been found. The competition can start in a week." Fang Gaoxian asked, "Have you decided on the name of your team?" Fang Jilai smiled faintly. "Think about it." Chapter 1:10 The shock of Hongsu and Xiujiao the next day. In the Fang family basketball gym. Rainbow team. Guys like Nash Goldo and Jason Thebe couldn't believe their ears. I originally thought that Fang Jilai would come up with some domineering name, but it turned out to be this name. Satsuki Momoi secretly laughed to the side. His eyes kept scanning everyone's hair color and found that the name was indeed very similar to Rainbow Sentai. Fang Jilai laughed, haha, and said, "I'm just kidding." Nash Goldo and others breathed a sigh of relief. "In that case, Lai Ge, what is the name of our team?" Fang Jilai was silent for a moment, then slowly said, "Black Emperor Dragon Team." Nash Goldo and others fell silent after hearing this name. This name was a little more domineering than the previous Rainbow team. But Nash Goldo and others felt a sense of violation, as if they shouldn't be called this name. However, they did not raise any objections. After all, the owner of this team is Fang Jilai. After the negotiation, Fang Jilai told everyone the information about the game in 6 days. "We will have our first game in 6 days. I don't want you to lose track. Do you understand?" Nash Goldo and others nodded. "Understood." Fang Jilai nodded with satisfaction. looked at everyone's training, and left the gym. Satsuki Momoi did not leave, taking notes on everyone's physical data under the protection of the Fang family security. Satsuki Momoi kept recording data, and the more he wrote, the more shocked he became. It's so scary. Everyone's data far exceeds Ada and the others. Satsuki Momoi looked at the data in his hand in surprise, because any one of the data in his hand was taller than Teik's person. Although age is one thing, the gap is really too big, especially for Jason Thibault. Jason Thibault's data is not at all that of a normal person. But what shocked Satsuki Momoi the most was Fang Jilai. Lai can easily suppress these people. How strong is he? Jason Thibault continued to train with the coach, staring at Nash Goldo. Nash Goldo seemed to notice something and turned his head to look at Jason Thibault. Jason Thibault turned his head unconvinced, no longer looking at Nash Goldo. Because he lost yesterday's duel, his actions seemed to have been completely seen through by Nash Goldo. Although he scored a few goals with his strength, those goals were scored with great difficulty. Nash Goldo gave Jason Thibault a very strange feeling, as if no matter what he did, Nash Goldo knew his next move. This feeling made Jason Thibault very unhappy. After Nash Goldo defeated Jason Thibault's attitude towards Nash Goldo was obviously much better, which was also the result Nash Goldo wanted. He just wants to be the first person under Fang Jilai. He can be suppressed by Fang Jilai, but he will never allow anyone else squeeze him. In the Fang family hospital, boom, 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 Fang Jilai knocked on the door of a private ward with a fruit basket. Click! The ward door was opened, and Hong Tsuinshio's figure was revealed. Jilai. Hong Tsuinshio Zhao looked at the visitor in surprise. Fang Jilai walked into the room with the fruit basket, put the fruit basket down, and said, "How's it going, Nijimura-senpai?" Nijimura Shizo turned around to look at his unconscious father. A smile appeared on his face. "It's much better. The doctor said that as long as you receive treatment, you will be able to recover soon." Hong Tsuinshio Zhao suddenly turned around and knelt down towards Fang Jilai. Fang Jilai quickly stopped him, but Hong Tsuinshio Zhao still knelt down and said with tears, "Thank you, Jilai. If it weren't for your help, my father might." Fang Jilai helped Hong Tsuinshio Zhao up. "It's okay, Senior Hong Tsuin. I will definitely help you if you need anything." Nijimura Shizo wiped his tears and choked up. "I still want to thank you. I have nothing to repay you at the moment. If you need it, I am willing to follow you, even if you ask me to die." Fang Jilai chuckled and said, "What did Senior Hong Tsuin say? Will I let you die?" When Hong Tsuinshio Zhao heard Fang Jilai's words, a smile appeared on his crying face, and he said sincerely, "Thank you, Jilai." Suddenly, Hong Tsuinshio Zhao seemed to remember something and asked hurriedly, "Jilai, you asked me about joining the team before? I will join. Before, I couldn't leave because my father's condition had not eased, but now that my father's condition has stabilized, I can leave. I am willing to join your team and contribute my share to you." Fang Jilai looked at the sincere Hong Tsuinshio Zhao, raised his lips, stretched out his right hand, and said, "Welcome, Nijimura-senpai." Hong Tsuinshio wiped his tears with a smile on his face, stretched out his right hand, and held Fang Jilai's right hand together. Fang Jilai suddenly smiled strangely and said, "Senior Hong Tsuin, my team is very strong. If you can't beat my players, then you can only be a substitute." Hong Tsuinshio wiped his nose with his right hand and raised his head. "Don't worry, Jilai. Don't you understand my strength? I will definitely. It will be blown up." Nijimura Shizo stared at the people speeding around the arena with his mouth wide open. Just feeling the aura emanating from a few people in the arena already made Nijimura Shizo feel scared. Are all Jilai's players such monsters? Satsuki Momoi handed the information to Nijimura Shizo. Nijimura Shizo looked at the information. His eyes widened suddenly, and he murmured in disbelief, How is it possible? What kind of data is this?" Nijimura Zizu felt that the report in his hand was simply ridiculous. Every data in the report was higher than his own data. Nijimura Shizo originally thought that his juniors were perverts, but after seeing the data in his hands, his worldview was once again hit. Using the data of the relatively mediocre 3 personnel in the report, they have completely crushed their own data and even crushed Teikō Jr.'s at the same position. What's more, Jason Tebow and Nash Gold have the most perverted statistics. The two of them have statistics that Hong Suinshio can't even think of. Fang Jilai looked at the stunned Nijimura Shuzo and smiled lightly. Senior Nijimura, how are my players? Chapter 111 Jackets. Hong Suinshio stood there blankly, and his words became choppy. Your players are impressive. Satsuki Momoi said sweetly from the side. Jirai defeated them all. What? Nijimura Shuzo's eyes widened, and he turned his head in disbelief. He danced and pointed at the report and asked, You mean Jilai defeated these monsters? Satsuki Momoi smiled and nodded, saying surprisingly, That's right. Nijimura Shiozao swallowed his saliva and looked at Fang Jilai again. He seemed to realize that this was the first time he met his junior student. With a faint smile on his face, Fang Jilai patted Hong Suinshio's shoulder and said, Senior Nijimura, let's train with them and grow up. We will be teammates in the future. Hong Suinshio came back to his senses in time, felt Fang Jilai's hope, and took a deep breath. I understand, Jilai. Hong Suinshio vowed in his heart that he must train hard and strive to contribute to Fang Jilai in the future, because Hong Suinshio owed Fang Jilai too much, so much that Hong Suinshio didn't know how to repay it. Bang, bang, bang. Fang Jilai clapped his hands and shouted, Gather! Victor stopped training in time and came to Fang Jilai with Nash Goldo and others. Brother Lai, what's wrong? Zack said with a smile. Fang Jilai introduced Hong Suinzidu to everyone and said, Everyone, this is my senior, named Hong Suinzidu. He is a power forward. He is currently Zack's substitute and will be a member of our team in the future. Member? Hong Suinshio suddenly became serious and greeted everyone. Hello, my name is Hong Suinshio. Please give me your advice. In English, Hong Suinshio said he should know it, so let's assume he does. Hello. Everyone had a friendly exchange, and after the introduction, Fang Jilai asked Victor to lead everyone to continue training, while he accompanied Satsuki Momoi to prepare information while messing around. During the training, Zack observed Nijimura Shuzo intentionally or unintentionally. After discovering that Nijimura Shuzo's strength did not seem to be strong, Zack relaxed and stopped observing. Alan touched Zack's arm and said with a sinister smile, Zack, the position of the person brought by Brother Lai seems to be the same as yours. You won't be the substitute in the future, right? Zack curled his lips and said, So what? If he can defeat me, what's the problem if I become his substitute? It's up to you. Just be your substitute. Alan smiled, hee, and said, It's my honor to be Lai Ge's substitute. Zack refused to admit defeat and immediately said, If Lai Ge insists that I be the new substitute, I will be honored. Lai Ge's words are the words of God to me. Alan stared and shouted, Brother Lai is my father. Zack took a breath and cursed. FKU. When did Brother Lai become your father? He is my father. My dad. Fang Jilai dug his ears and felt it was a bit noisy, so he shouted, Shut up and train hard. The two of them suddenly became quiet and started training honestly with their mouths closed. This scene made Hong Suinzidu stunned. How did Jilai do it? These people don't look like good people, but Jilai was able to treat them so obediently. There was even a quarrel over who Jilai's father was, which is too scary. Fang Jilai sat on the recliner and watched everyone train. Satsuki Momoi recorded the data seriously. When recording the construction of Hong Suin, Satsuki Momoi couldn't help but sigh. Hey, the gap is so big. Nijimura Senpai is also the #1 power forward in our middle school, but the data gap between them is too big. Fang Jilai lay on the chair and said lazily, There is no way. After all, Nash and the others are much better than Senior Hongsuin. Senior Hongsuin will still grow up in the future. Satsuki Momoi nodded in approval, turned to Fang Jilai and said, That's what I said, but Lai, why don't you go to training? Fang Jilai hesitated for a while and then said calmly, "My strength changes with age. This can be regarded as my special ability." Satsuki Momoi obviously didn't believe this argument, but she didn't say much. After all, everyone has a little secret. That's all. The Black Emperor Dragon team spent several days training, recovering, resting, training again, recovering, and resting. Soon it was time for the first game. The competition venue was chosen at the largest local field. Because of the Fang family's publicity, many people knew that a competition would be held here. During the game, they could also see the heir to the Fang family take the field. The news instantly spread throughout the city, and everyone wanted to see the appearance and basketball skills of the heir to the Fang family. As a result, before the two teams came, the stadium was already surrounded. Everyone is talking about the upcoming game. Have you heard? The heir to the Fang family will play in this game. TCH, of course I heard about it. Otherwise, who would come to see it? Fang family, that's serious. Look around. The Fang family security guards are already standing full. Of course, after all, the safety of the Fang family's heir must be protected. The Fang family security arrived at the scene early and always paid attention to Fang Jilai's safety. For this reason, the Fang family also talked with the police and assigned snipers to prevent Fang Jilai from being harmed. Boom, boom, boom. A bus drove slowly over and stopped. After stopping, people slowly began to get out of the bus. The audience turned their attention to the bus and began to exclaim after seeing who was coming. Come on, it's the Jackets, a very strong street ball team nearby. The momentum is as strong as ever. I wonder if the team of the heir to the Fang family can beat them. The opponent of the Black Emperor Dragons is a very popular team in a nearby street ball circle called the Jackets. As the name suggests, each of them wears a jacket and loves jackets, so they are called the Jacket Team. The members of the Jackets slowly walked toward the court, led by a giant man nearly 2 meters tall. The man was wearing a specially customized jacket. His name was Blau Rowan, and he was the captain of the Jackets. To his right is a white man eating bubblegum. The white man is following Blau with his hands in his pockets. The white man's name is Marlon Angelo. He is the second in command of the Jackets and a shooting guard. Boss, do we really want to compete with the heir to the Fang family? Chapter 112, there are actually 2 such characters. The person who spoke was a relatively short man, only a little over 1.6 meters tall, who is the point guard of the Jackets named Bobby Deeve. Idiot, do you still dare to question the news sent by the Fang family? The person who responded was a black man with lip studs. His name was Isaac Harry, a small forward for the Jackets. Okay, stop arguing and let's have a good game. The Fang family has promised that if we win the game, we can get $1 million. This is a huge sum of money. The person who spoke was a white man named Raglan Quint, who was a power forward. The Jackets also have a few substitutes, but they don't need too much introduction. Bobby said, the Fang family dares to say that, which means their team is very powerful. Isaac replied, so what? Who in the nearby street ball circles can beat us? Are the Fang family going to invite people from other cities? Captain Blau, who was walking in the front, said calmly, it's possible. After all, it's the Fang family. Isaac was stunned for a moment after hearing this, thinking that it seemed possible. Then let's put it this way. This is a fierce battle. Mullen ate his chewing gum and said calmly, I don't know about the fierce battle, but you should clean it up for me. I don't want us to meet in the morgue later. Isaac looked at the Fang family security guards standing around and shuddered. Don't worry, I don't dare to do anything to the Fang family's heir. Marin continued to speak calmly. That's good. If you can't hold it back, then we can't help you. Isaac immediately affirmed, no, I won't do any other little tricks today, even if I beat myself up. When the Jackets walked to the court, there was a sea of people around the court, already filled with spectators. For the game, the Fang family specially built a temporary viewing stand so that more people could watch the game. Bobby looked at the stands around him and couldn't help but murmured. As expected of the Fang family, I haven't played in such a lively game for a long time. Blau took off his jacket, revealing his uniform and his muscles, and reminded, warm up. There will be a game later. The Jackets nodded and took off their clothes to warm up. At this moment, a noisy voice interrupted them. The Jackets look ahead. I saw a huge luxury car slowly stopping. When it arrived, the door was opened. The players of the Black Emperor Dragons slowly walked out of the car. Alan, Nico, Zach, and Nijimura were the first to appear, and the four of them got out of the car at the same time and walked to the stadium. All four of them were wearing black suits. Alan and Zach were excitedly feeling the atmosphere of the stadium, and they couldn't help but grin, making them look very dangerous. Nico, on the other hand, showed no expression on his face, and Nijimurazu walked slowly ahead. The audience began to talk a lot. Are these the team members chosen by the Fang family? Why do those two people look a bit dangerous? It must be the facial appearance. I think it's quite normal. I don't know how strong they are. Everyone in the Jackets team observed Nijimura building 4 people. Is this it? It doesn't look very powerful. Bobby murmured, but Blau frowned. It's very dangerous. Mullen turned his head, looked at Blau, who was frowning, and asked, "Did you feel anything?" Everyone in the Jackets team looked at Blau. They all knew that their boss had an ability, and that was the ability to sense. He could sense the strength of his opponent. Blau looked at the 4 people coming towards him. Except for Hongsu and Zayuzo, the other 3 people made him feel a sense of crisis. This feeling meant that each of the 3 people in front of him could pose a threat to him. All 3 of them are very strong. Only the Easterner makes me feel no danger. Everyone in the Jackets suddenly became serious. Since Blau said that the 3 of them were dangerous, then the 3 of them would definitely pose a threat to themselves and others. Just when the Jackets and others were serious, Blau suddenly opened his mouth wide and unconsciously made a shocking ah sound. Everyone in the Jackets team turned to look at Blau. This was the first time they saw Blau showing such an expression, and they all asked, "What's wrong, Blau?" Blau seemed to have not heard anything and murmured to himself, How? How could? Everyone in the Jackets team followed Blau's gaze and looked ahead and saw someone getting out of the car. The person who came had white hair, and his black suit was stretched out to a huge size. His tall height and grinning smile gave people an extremely oppressive feeling. This person is none other than Jason Thibber. Bobby opened his mouth wide and murmured, What kind of physique is this? You are better than the captain." Bobby turned to look at Blau and found that Blau was still in shock. "Captain, feeling he makes you." Blau swallowed his saliva and murmured in disbelief, "We can't win." Marin was suddenly shocked, turned around and asked in disbelief, "What did you say?" Blau murmured, "Can't win. He gives me the feeling, just like a ferocious beast, and I seem to be a lamb, just waiting to be preyed on." As soon as these words came out, all members of the Jackets team were shocked because it was the first time they heard this from their captain. In the past, the highest evaluation given by their captain was dangerous. When the captain gives this evaluation, it means that they will have a tough battle, but it is not impossible to win. But now their captain actually directly said the words "cannot win." Bobby smiled bitterly and murmured, Sure. It's really hard to get the Fang family's money." Suddenly, Blau felt an extremely depressing breath again, causing him to exclaim unconsciously, "How is it possible? How can there be 2 such characters?" Mullen and Isaac immediately turned their heads and looked at the people getting out of the car. I saw Nash Goldo wearing a black suit, with a smile on his face that said he had everything under control, slowly walking towards the court with his hands in his pockets, and his blonde hair showed his arrogance. Blau looked at the person coming in shock, because Nash Goldo gave him the same feeling as Jason Thibault. If Jason Thibault gives people a great sense of oppression, then Nash Goldo gives people an extreme sense of oppression. Blau couldn't believe that there were 2 such people in the Black Emperor Dragon team who were the heirs of the Fang family. At this moment, an extremely noble and bloody aura spread in Blau's heart. 2 different extreme auras emerged in one person, making him unable to believe it. Under this aura, Blau couldn't help but want to kneel down and worship. In fact, Blau did exactly that. Chapter 113, They are too weak. Blau suddenly fell to his knees, leaving everyone on the Jacket side at a loss. "Captain, what's wrong with you? Why did you suddenly kneel down?" Blau was a little doubtful about life and said in a dull tone, Can't win at all. The heir to the Fang family." When Mullen and others saw Blau's appearance, They immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. There was only one reason why Blau, who had the ability to perceive, could become like this. That means the person coming is very strong. So strong that Blau completely loses his fighting spirit. Mark and others turned to look at the Black Emperor Dragon team. I saw Fang Jilai slowly walking out of the car. He was wearing a black suit with a faint smile on his face, and he looked like a nobleman. Behind Fang Jilai, Satsuki Momoi came out in casual clothes, took Fang Jilai's hand, and walked forward with Fang Jilai. The audience started to exclaim and discuss after seeing the two. Kulme, the heir to the Fang family, has a really different temperament. The person beside him is his girlfriend, right? Sure enough, the woman who is the heir to the Fang family is not bad looking either. Malin and others looked at Fang Jilai walking towards them. They found that Fang Jilai was not as strong as the aura exuded by the previous people, but they did not dare to be careless. Because of Blau's appearance, he was saying all the time that Fang Jilai was the most powerful being in the Black Emperor Dragon team. After Fang Jilai got out of the car, he saw Blau kneeling on the ground, looking a little confused. Why did he kneel down? Nash Goldo also didn't understand. He shook his head and flattered him. Maybe I admire you, Brother Lai. Fang Jilai rolled his eyes. You're pretty good at flattering me. Jacket's here. Marin and Isaac pulled Brau up and saw that Brau had lost his fighting spirit and looked worried. Do you want to continue fighting? This is obviously a massacre. Isaac asked a little panicked. Now that everyone knows it is a massacre, the meaning of the game is gone. It is better to surrender honestly. After Mullen heard Isaac's words, he lowered his head and fell into deep thought. While he was deep in thought, Blau suddenly interrupted. Fight, we must fight. Isaac was a little confused and asked, Captain, what? Blau slowly raised his head and looked at Isaac with his eyes, which made people shudder. Idiot! Do you think, if we don't fight, the Fang family will let us go? Isaac's body trembled as he was stared at by Blau, but he had no reason to refute, because what Blau said was right. If they don't fight, the Fang family will definitely not let them go. At this point, they have only one way to go, and that is to fight hard. Even if they know it is a massacre, they must continue to fight. And we must fight with all our strength. Otherwise, the Fang family will feel that they are disrespected. There was no other way. Blau could only quickly adjust his condition and start warming up. After the audience saw that both teams had arrived and started to warm up, they started discussing. Who do you think will win? It must be the Black Emperor Dragons. Do you have to think about it? That's the Fang family. All professional players want to play for them. Not necessarily. The Jackets are a very strong street ball team nearby. A white man put forward a different opinion, but the moment he put it forward, a group of people looked directly at him. The white man immediately waved his hands in fear and changed his words. The Black Emperor Dragon team. The Black Emperor Dragon team must win. What kind of thing is the Jacket team actually trying to fight against the Black Emperor Dragon team? After the white man changed his words, the people around him looked away. When they looked away, the white man vaguely heard some words. Is he an idiot? He actually thinks that the team founded by the Fang family will lose. I don't know. It looks like he just ran away. On the field, the Black Emperor Dragons warmed up in an orderly manner, and Jason Thibault violently dunked against the basket, making the audience exclaim. Alan and Zach kept showing off fancy dribbling and then shooting and scoring. Nico didn't make any extra moves. He dribbled the ball a few times and then threw the basketball. Nijimura Shizo looked at the people showing off their magical powers. Holding the basketball in his arms, he sighed slightly. They are all monsters. It is hard to imagine that Nijimura Shizo, who is known as the No, one middle school student in Sakura country, is completely at the bottom of this team. Nijimura Shizo also had a one-on-one match with Zach, but unfortunately, in the one-on-one match, Nijimura Shizo was perfectly defeated by Zach with a score of 21-6. 6 of the points were suspected of being leaked by Zach. Fang Jilai patted Hongtsu and Shiozao's shoulder and comforted. Senior Nijimura, don't be discouraged. Train hard, and you will be able to surpass them one day. Hongtsu and Shiozao sighed helplessly. Of course, he knew that Fang Jilai was comforting him. He himself knew about his talent. He looked up at the sky and said, Jilai, sometimes I envy your talents, so you won't say more. Just talk about King Feng and the others. Their talents are amazing to me. I can imagine that if King Feng continues to grow, I may not even be able to score a point in his hands in the future. Fang Jilai looked at the suddenly sad Hong, Siyuan Shiozeo, and patted Hong, Siyuan Shiozeo on the head. What are you feeling about? Warm up well, go back and train hard, try to become stronger, and give them a surprise when you go back. Nijimura Zaiza touched his head and suddenly smiled. Okay. Nijimura Shizo knew that Fang Jilai was comforting himself in this way, and he was also very grateful to Fang Jilai. If it hadn't been for Fang Jilai, he would have given up on basketball at this time. Fang Jilai walked up to Nash Goldo and said, What are you looking at? After hearing the sound, Nash Gordo turned around suddenly and said, I'm looking at how our opponent is doing. It turned out that Nash Goldo was just observing the strength of his opponent. Fang Jilai looked at the Jackets who were still warming up and asked, How are you doing? Do you see anything? Nash Gordo suddenly smiled and spun the basketball in his hand. Weak. They're too weak, so weak that I can't feel any tension. They're a very strong street ball team in the area. Brother Lai, please stop praising them. You must have felt it yourself. They are too weak. Nash Goldo looked at Fang Jilai and said. The corner of Fang Jilai's mouth suddenly rose. He nodded and said, Indeed, they are very weak. In this case, let's have a beautiful first battle. Nash Goldo raised the corners of his mouth and said with a strange smile, I understand. Lai Ge, Chapter 114, the first battle of the Black Emperor Dragon team. It started. The game is about to begin. I'm so looking forward to it. The audience became excited watching the game that was about to begin. People from both teams stood face to face and greeted each other. When saying hello, Fang Jilai clearly felt that the body of the person opposite him was shaking unconsciously. The two sides stood in position, and the referee walked between Jason Thiber and Blau to prepare to throw the ball. Jason Thibault looked at Blau, who was 1 point taller than him, and grinned. He didn't think he would lose on the jump ball. Sure enough, after the referee threw the ball up, Jason Thibault jumped up immediately with a staggering speed. In front of Blau's surprised eyes, Jason Thiber shot the basketball into the backcourt with a gap of one hand more than Blau's. Nash Goldo caught the basketball and slowly dribbled the ball across the half-court. They didn't plan to play a fast break because they didn't need it. Bobby swallowed and defended Nash Goldo. Bobby knows that Nash Goldo is very strong because judging from Blau's performance just now, Nash Goldo and Jason Thiber are on the same level. So Bobby played 200% mental defense against Nash Goldo. Nash Gordo felt the fighting spirit of the little man in front of him and suddenly grinned. Under Bobby's doubtful eyes, Nash Gordo started dribbling on the spot. At first, it was still dribbling normally, but as he went to the back, the speed of dribbling became faster, and even an afterimage appeared. Bobby's doubtful eyes gradually turned into panic. Just when Bobby was frightened, he suddenly found that Nash Goldo in front of him stopped dribbling. At the same time, the basketball in Nash Goldo's hand also disappeared. Bobby was confused. Not only him, but everyone on the Jackets team was also stunned. Where's the ball? Haha. Suddenly, a burst of arrogant laughter came from behind Blau. Blau turned his head in horror and saw Jason Thibault jumping high with a basketball in his hand. The ball's here. Idiots, collapse. Jason Thiber slammed the basketball into the basket, and the basket kept making click-click sounds. Blau looked at this scene in surprise. When did the ball get to him? Off the field. The audience was also surprised because they didn't see how the ball was passed to Jason Thiber. What's going on? Why did the basketball suddenly pass to that big man's hands? I don't know. I was groped and chased just now. I looked back to see who the murderer was. The audience was shocked. If they couldn't even see the pass clearly, wouldn't the defense become a joke? On the field, Bobby froze on the spot and asked Mullen on the side, Did you just see the ball? Marin shook his head, his eyes equally horrified. No. Bobby swallowed, turned his head and looked at Nash Goldo, who was returning to defense with difficulty. Weird. Monster. Transition of possession. Just after Bobby dribbled the ball past half-court, Nash Goldo came up to defend. While defending, Nash Goldo started talking trash. "Little man, are you dribbling steadily? I feel like all the old ladies on the street can dribble better than you." While Nash Goldo interfered with trash talk, he began to steal Bobby continuously, which was full of pressure. Bobby didn't reply and avoided Nash Goldo's steal with a painful look on his face. Malin sensed something was wrong and immediately ran out, stretched out his hand and shouted, "Here!" After Bobby heard it, he immediately passed the basketball. Bobby, who originally thought he was safe, suddenly saw a weird smile on Nash Goldo's face. When Mullen was preparing to catch the ball with both hands, a figure suddenly rushed out and intercepted Bobby's pass. It turned out to be Nico, who seized the opportunity and intercepted Bobby's pass. "Lucky." Nico laughed, slapped the basketball, and rushed towards the front court. Marin reacted immediately and chased after him. Nico noticed that Marin was gradually approaching him from behind, and a bad smile appeared on his face. He deliberately slowed down to give Mullen hope and finally despair. Malin rushed in front of Nico and opened his hands to defend. When defending, Mullen never forgets to talk trash. "You're too slow." Nico's smile froze, and his eyes became gloomy. "Originally, I just wanted to wait for you to come and then break through you. But now, you make me very unhappy." After saying that, Nico began to dribble the ball in fancy ways, constantly shifting Mullen's center of gravity. Every time Mullen thought Nico was about to break through, Nico pulled back without making any breakthrough move. Mullen, who realized that he was being tricked, couldn't help but feel a little angry. He stepped forward and stayed close to Nico, hoping to prevent Nico from dribbling. Nico smiled sarcastically and instantly accelerated to break through Mullen. Mullen thought to himself, "Oh no." Malin quickly prepared to pursue him, but when he turned around, he found that Nico was pulling back again. Mullen had a very unhappy expression on his face after being teased like this, and he defended Nico again, but this time he no longer defended closely. Nico looked at Mullen mockingly and slammed the basketball onto Mullen's head with his right hand. The basketball hit Mullen's head and came back, but Nico continued to catch it. Malin was immediately angry, but he did not dare to take action because the Fang family security guard was still standing outside, so he had no choice but to use trash talk and spat. "A dirty guy." Mullen didn't dare to hit someone in front of the Fang family security, but he still dared to talk trash, because trash talking is very common on street courts and has even become a tradition. Nico was not affected, but said sarcastically, "I learned this from you guys. Have you forgotten how you mocked others?" Marin's expression changed, and he gritted his teeth without retorting. Because the Jackets have a bad reputation, what they are best at is taunting their opponents during games, hitting their heads with basketballs, and provoking them everywhere. The main thing is that the Jackets are always looking for trouble, which is why Fang's father chose to have the Jackets fight against Fang Jilai's team in the first game. First, it can build a reputation, and second, it can win the hearts of the people. "Don't waste time, attack," Nash Gordo urged. Nico held the ball for too long. Nico immediately started attacking after hearing Nash Goldo's words. In the Black Emperor Dragon team, Nash Goldo is the second talker besides Fang Jilai, that is, the second in command. This matter was not decided by Nash Gordo himself, but approved by Fang Jilai. Because Fang Jilai did not want to manage the team all the time, Nash Goldo was made the second in command so that it would be easier to manage the team later. Chapter 1:15 Rules. Of course, Fang Jilai also set some rules for everyone. The first is that you must not actively provoke others. The second is that you can fight, but you cannot actively provoke a fight. If it is reasonable, please do so. The third thing is that training and singing every night should not be wasted. The fourth is that you can talk trash, but you cannot use petty tricks or other dirty actions. Under Fang Jilai's pressure, everyone nodded and signed a contract because Fang Jilai wanted to pay them wages. If they violate the above rules, they will have all their property returned and be expelled from the team. Of course, their wages are also very high, but it doesn't matter. The Fang family is rich. Nico no longer hesitated and started attacking suddenly. I saw him dribbling the ball twice in a row, instantly swaying away from Mullen and rushing into the paint. After entering the paint, Nico threw the basketball into the basket with a jump shot. After scoring, Nico mocked. Easy. Mullen looked at Nico's back angrily. Since he didn't dare to take action, he would respond with a basketball. Mullen remembered that Nico only felt dangerous to Blau, which also showed that Nico's strength was not very foul. Transition of possession. As soon as Bobby passed half court with the ball, Mullen stretched out his hand and yelled, "Ball!" When Bobby saw this, he quickly passed the basketball to Mullen because he really didn't want to hold the ball anymore, and the pressure from Nash Gordo in front of him was too great. After Mullen caught the ball, facing Nico's defense, he jumped up directly after making a triple threat and threw the basketball. Nico quickly followed, and the tips of his fingers brushed against the basketball. Marin was shocked. How could it be possible? The basketball hit the rim, bounced high, and then began to fall. Jason Theiber stuck Blau tightly, and he had no reaction after the basketball dropped to a position where he could get it. "What's wrong? Are you made of paper? You only have this little power." Jason Theibo laughed and mocked. Blau looked extremely ugly and struggled to resist Jason Thebe's strength. His muscles were like a joke in front of Jason Thebe. Damn it. Jason Thieback caught Blau's position, stretched out his right hand, and caught the falling basketball. "It seems that your strength has come to an end. Are your muscles treated with medicine?" Blau suddenly felt red and warm. For him, the word drug was an insult to him, but he didn't dare to take action. Not to mention the Fang family security outside. Whether he could beat Jason Shibwa was another matter. Someone may have to say here that it is not good for Jason Theiber to talk trash. In fact, this is not the case. Trash talk is allowed here at Fang Jilai. Fang Jilai allows his teammates to talk trash because, as I said before, trash talking is a method on the basketball court, and it is even a special weapon for some people. If a person can't even bear trash talk, then he may be suitable for playing recreational basketball. Although trash talk can arouse a person's emotions, it can also arouse a person's fighting spirit. Let's get back to business. Jason Theiber grabbed the rebound and passed it to Fangle. After receiving the ball, Fang Jilai walked slowly towards the front court. After reaching the front court, Isaac dared to step forward to defend, but his defense was very strange. He put his hands behind his back because Isaac felt that this was the only way to avoid touching Fang Jilai's body. He was really afraid that he would accidentally catch Fang Jilai somewhere, and then the Fang family would kill him. Fang Jilai looked at him speechlessly and said calmly, "Defend well. I won't say anything about normal injuries on the basketball court. Of course, I mean normal." Isaac swallowed, stretched out his hand tremblingly, and said, "Then, Mr. Fang." I started to defend. Fang Jilai nodded, and then threw the basketball under Isaac's trembling eyes. The shot was extremely fast, and the basketball was like a precise missile, steadily entering the basket. Brush. Isaac was stunned. What happened? Who am I? Where am I? How did the ball go in? Many questions appeared in his mind. Just as he was about to defend, Fang Jilai had already made the basketball. Not only him, but the Jackets players and spectators present were stunned. Some of the audience wiped their eyes and murmured in disbelief. What just happened? I seemed to see Mr. Fang flick his hand, and then the ball went in. It seems so. The shooting speed was too fast. I didn't even see it clearly. On the field, while the Jackets were stunned, Jason Theiber laughed and said, "Idiots, the strongest among us." But Lai Ge. With that, Jason Theiber laughed and ran back in the backfield, leaving the Jackets stunned. Although they had been mentally prepared before and knew that Fang Jilai was the strongest in the Black Emperor Dragon team, they were still inevitably shocked after seeing Fang Jilai's action. With his shooting speed, they don't even know how to defend. Transition of possession. Before half the court, Bobby immediately passed the basketball to power forward Raglan. Zach immediately stepped forward to defend and continued to exert pressure. Seeing this, Raglan dropped the ball with his right hand and violently fought with his body. Zach was knocked back, and Raglan immediately stood on one foot and held the basketball high in preparation for shooting. Your uncle, I am here. Suddenly, a wild voice came out. Jason Theiber ran from Raglan's right side and slapped Raglan's basketball away. Raglan opened his eyes in horror. How is that possible? After Jason Theiber slapped the basketball away, he sprinted towards the front court. Marin and Bobby reacted and immediately chased after them. Blau did not move because he moved very slowly, which is the disadvantage of his large body. Originally, he thought Jason Theiber would be caught up quickly, but what happened next made him completely dumbfounded. Mullen looked at Jason Shibua's back with a painful expression, feeling extremely shocked in his heart. Why? Can't catch up. Even Bobby, the fastest player on the Jackets, was just behind Jason Theiber. Blau and the rest of the Jackets watched as Jason Theiber jumped up for a windmill dunk. Everyone was very surprised. A 2-meter center was actually faster than the fastest point guard in their team, Bobby, who was 1.6 meters tall. This made them feel extremely ridiculous. Chapter 116, You're Not Playing Ball Alone. Off the court, Satsuki Momoi kept recording data with a pen. Hong Sunziza looked at Jason Shibua hanging on the basket in shock, with mixed feelings in his heart. This kind of physical talent is too scary. Nijimura Shizo originally thought that Atsushi Murasakibara's static and dynamic talents were already very strong. But in front of Jason Theiber, Atsushi Murasakibara's current physical talents were simply not enough. Woohoo! Shibua's dunk is as awesome as ever. Alan cheered beside Hong Tsuzizu and kept waving towels. Nijimura Shizo looked at the black man in front of him, who was also a substitute like him. He knew in his heart that Alan became the substitute because Fang Jilai had pressured him. It's not because of weakness. On the contrary, Alan's strength is stronger than Nijimura Shizo and is almost the same as Zach. However, such a person could only become a substitute in front of Fang Jilai, which made Hongtsuan Shiozao sigh incomparably. Jilai, you are the one who hides the deepest among us. Beep. The Black Emperor Dragon team requests a timeout. The referee signaled a timeout, and then Hong Tsuzo looked at the court in confusion and found that Fang Jilai had called for the timeout. After Fang Jilai led everyone off the field, he said to Hongtsuan Shiozao, Senior Hongtsuan, come on. Hongtsuan Shiozao was startled and waved his hands repeatedly. Jilai, you can still fight, Fang Jilai waved his hand and said softly, It's okay, Senior Hongtsuan, come on. You must have wanted to play for a long time. Hongtsuan Shizo was silent. He really wanted to play, but his strength was not very strong in front of everyone. He was a little afraid of losing Fang Jilai's face. Jilai, actually Alan, hey Hongtsuan, don't say any more. Just go when Brother Lai asks you to come on. There are so many words. Alan interrupted Hong Cun Shiozao's words and spoke to Ni Cun Shiozao. Nijimura Shizo turned to look at Alan, and after seeing Alan giving him an encouraging smile, Nijimura Shizo finally made up his mind. He nodded to Fang Jilai and said, I understand. Alan then showed a satisfied smile. The game starts again. The audience discovered that the Black Emperor Dragon team had replaced the heir of the Fang family and put a black-haired boy on the field. Master Fang, aren't you going to fight? Why did you change the person? I don't know. Did Mr. Fang stop fighting just after he exerted his strength? Maybe the opponent is too weak. After all, the Jackets haven't scored a single goal now. The audience was talking a lot, analyzing the reasons for Fang Jilai's end. On the field, Nijimura fixed his uniform, his eyes were firm, and he took a deep breath after looking at the Jackets players. He had not felt nervous for a long time and became nervous again. Nash Goldo noticed Nijimura Shizo's mood, walked over, patted him on the shoulder, and said, Hongtsuan, relax, you are not playing alone. Because Nijimura Shizo was very nervous, his body trembled suddenly after being patted on the shoulder by Nash Goldo. After seeing that the person who slapped was Nash Goldo, Nijimura Shizo breathed a sigh of relief. Thanks, Nash. Nash Goldo felt the trembling of Nijimura Shizo's body just now, and said softly, being nervous is a good thing, but being overly nervous is bad. Prepare well and prepare to catch the ball. Nash Gordo patted Nijimura Shizuo's shoulder again, then turned around and prepared to defend. Nijimura Shizuo was silent for a while, took a deep breath, and prepared to defend. On the jacket side, Isaac saw the Black Emperor dragons making substitutions and said, "There's been a substitution. Mr. Fang is out." Blau breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Hongtsuan Zayuzo on the field. "Next, give the ball to Isaac. I don't sense a sense of crisis in that guy. He's not strong." Isaac suddenly became excited after hearing this. "Really? Then I have to attack hard. Start serving." Barbie dribbled the ball across half court and immediately passed the ball to Isaac. Isaac looked at Hongtsuan Zizu, who was guarding him seriously, and looked at Hongtsuan Zizu with his eyes. After realizing that Nijimura Shizuo seemed to be unable to defend himself, Isaac grinned. Then he kicked the ball hard and broke through from the right side of Hongtsuan Zizu. By the time Nijimura Shizuo reacted, Isaac had already broken through him and rushed to the inside. Hongtsuan Shizuo secretly said, "No," and quickly turned around to prepare for pursuit. After Isaac broke through Nijimura, he took 2 steps and immediately made a jump shot because he did not dare to challenge Jason Thiber's defense. Nijimura Shizuo tried his best to cover up the defense, but he was too late. Isaac had already thrown the basketball. At this time, snap! A crisp sound of blocking came out. Isaac and Nijimura Shizuo both looked at the basketball in the air in surprise. I saw Nash Goldo with blonde hair flying in the air and flying the basketball with his left hand. If you look closely at his eyes, you will find that his emerald green eyes are flashing with a golden halo, and the eye of the Demon King is activated. "Hey Hongtsuan, I told you, you are not playing ball alone." Nijimura looked at Nash Goldo blankly. An inexplicable emotion emerged in his heart. Zach picked up the basketball that was shot away and shouted to Nijimura Shizuo, who was still stunned. "Hey, Nijimura, what are you doing standing still? Quick attack." Nijimura Shizuo reacted instantly, turned around, and ran quickly towards the front court. Zach looked at Niji Kungsuzu, who was running, with a smile on his face. This kid. Zach swung the basketball and threw it into Nijimura Shizuo's hand. Nijimura caught the basketball, swatted it with his right hand, and rushed towards the front court. Malone immediately ran back and stopped in front of Hongtsuan Shizuo. "You brat, I won't let you pass easily." There was no expression on Nijimura Zaizu's face. He only had one thought in his mind right now, and that was, goal, goal, goal. Suddenly, the world around Hongtsuan Zaizu changed, and he came to a dark place, surrounded by nothing but darkness. There's only one solemn door in the dark place. The gate is very luxurious. Standing in this dark place, Hongtsuan Shizuo seems to have seen many faint figures in front of this gate. If you don't look carefully, you can't see these figures at all. Nijimura Zaizu slowly walked to the door. Instinctively, he stretched out his hands and pushed hard. However, after pushing many times in succession, he found that the door could not be pushed at all. Just at this time, Chapter 117 Zone. At this moment, a black shadow slowly walked out from behind Hong Siyuan Shizuo. Nijimura Shizuo looked at the shadow in confusion. I saw the black shadow slowly walking to the door, putting his hands on the door, and then turned his head to look at Hongtsuan Shizuo. It seemed as if he was signaling Nijimura to come forward and push the door open with him. Nijimura Shizuo was confused for a moment, then took a deep breath, slowly walked towards the open door, stretched out his hands, and put them on the door. Then Hongtsuan Zizu and the black shadow worked together to forcefully open the door. After the door was opened, the black shadow disappeared. Only the open door was left announcing his recent presence. Nijimura Zizu stared at the place where the black shadow disappeared, then raised his legs and crossed the gate to the other side of the gate. Kaz! Suddenly, an inexplicable aura instantly swept across the entire stadium. Fang Jilai stood up suddenly outside the court because he felt the changes that had taken place in Hongtsuan Shizuo. Blau of the Jackets suddenly froze and looked at Nijimura Shizuo in disbelief. Ow! How is it possible? For the first time, Blau felt as if his detection ability was broken, because originally there was no sense of crisis for him in Hongsuin Shiojua. At this moment, there was an extremely strong sense of crisis. This sense of crisis even exceeds that of Zack and others. Kaz. A black lightning emerged from Hong Tsunshio's eyes. At this time, Hong Tsuzuzu felt as if his body was bathed in warm sunshine. Power continuously bursts out from the body built by Hongsuin. Nijimura Shizo looked at Mullen in front of him expressionlessly. Just by looking at each other, Nijimura Shizo broke through Mullen's defense. A black lightning trail was left behind. Marin froze on the spot. His mouth opened unconsciously, as if he had seen something terrible, and he murmured unconsciously, "Disappeared, disappeared." Facing the empty basket, Hong Tsunshio jumped high and poured the basketball into the basket. The court suddenly fell silent, and only the sound of the basket echoed. Hong Tsunshio Zhao slowly landed on the ground and raised his head expressionlessly. A pair of eyes with black lightning looked at Marin indifferently and said a rare trash talk. "Crossing you is as easy as crossing the road in the early morning." Marin stood there with his mouth wide open, without any answer. Silence was followed by roaring applause, and the audience exclaimed, "Did you see it?" The black-haired boy broke through in an instant. "I didn't even see the action. I thought he was weak, but I didn't expect him to be so strong." The audience was very shocked. They originally thought that Hongsuin's construction was weak, but now it seems that Hongsuin's construction is very strong. On the field, Zack looked at the high-spirited Nijimura Shizo and murmured with a smile, "I really admire this brat. If he had been in this state earlier, I might have been the substitute." Nico walked up to Zack and patted him on the shoulder. "I didn't expect that Hongsuin actually had a hidden agenda." Jason Shibuya looked at Hongsuin Zuzu and laughed. "Hongsuin, I didn't expect you to have a hidden agenda." Everyone is happy about the construction of Hongsuin. Only Nash Goldo and Fang Jilai don't feel so. Nash Goldo saw this state for the first time. Curious, he used the Demon King's eye to explore Nijimura's body, and Nash Goldo was horrified to discover it. Hong Tsunshio was in a very strange physical condition at this time. All his physical abilities have improved, but he always has a weird feeling. It was as if an ability that should not belong to this person suddenly entered this person's body. For example, the construction of Hongsuin at this time is like the machine gun peas in Plants vs. Zombies that were forcibly installed on ordinary peas. This is extremely weird. Fang Jilai felt the same way, even though Hongsuin construction opened the zone. But his zone gives people a very inconsistent feeling. The necessary condition for opening a zone is to love basketball. The second is having extremely high talent that can open doors. Hongsuin building is equipped for those who love basketball, but the extremely high talent to open the door is a bit difficult for Hongsuin Shioju. Compared with others, Hongsuin Shio's talent is definitely higher than theirs. But compared to the talents of several people in the Age of Miracles, Hongsuin Shiojua can never compare with them. But if such a person actually forcibly opened the zone, then there's only one possibility: faith. Nijimura Shizo used faith to make up for the talent gap. Faith turned into a force to help Hong Tsunzizu push open the door and forcefully open the zone. Although you can enter the zone this way, there is a disadvantage. That means Hongsuin construction may not be able to enter the zone anymore. For ordinary people, it is already difficult to open a zone once. But it is not too difficult for a genius to open a zone once, but the second time is difficult. Many geniuses cannot enter the zone again after entering the zone once. And the more you want to enter the zone, the less likely you are to enter. But geniuses have one advantage, and that is strength. They can continue to improve their strength in the follow-up to enter the second zone. But Hongsuin Shiojiao can't do it now because he relies on faith. If Hongsuin Shiojua wants to enter the zone again, then you must have a stronger belief than when you first entered the zone. This is much more difficult than entering the zone with strength. Nash Goldo didn't understand this, though. But he knew that all they could do at this moment was to let Hongsuin Shiozao enjoy this moment. It would be best to let Hongsuin Shiozao fully appreciate this moment. For this reason, Nash Goldo specifically reminded, "Feel this state well, don't think about scoring goals. Carefully feel the feeling this state brings to you." Nijimura Shuzo nodded seriously, but how could he abandon the idea of scoring goals and feel the state? He entered the zone because of his belief in scoring goals. In the next few minutes, Nash Goldo kept passing the ball to Nijimura, hoping to let Nijimura feel this state. However, every time Nijimura received the ball, he launched an attack directly, tearing apart the Jacket's defensive goals in an instant. The same goes for the defensive end, with Nijimura Shuzo constantly stealing the Jacket's basketball to initiate fast breaks. This made Nash Goldo immediately stunned, and he grabbed Hongtsu and Shiojan. He was about to say something, but Fang Jilai outside the court suddenly interrupted him. Nash Goldo looked at Fang Jilai and saw Fang Jilai shaking his head. Only then did Nash Goldo give up the idea of opening his mouth and let Nijimura Shuzo continue to attack. Fang Jilai looked at Hongtsu and Shiojan, who kept scoring goals on the field. He also understood in his heart that the belief that allowed Hongtsu and Shiojua to open that door was a goal. Chapter 118, The Jackets. Didn't score a point. After learning that the confidence built by Hongtsuan was to score goals, Fang Jilai was immediately happy for him. Because the belief in scoring goals can be easily improved, this means that it will be easy for Nijimura Shuzo to enter the zone for the second time. For example, Fang Jilai only needs to let Jason Thibault and Hongtsu and Shiozao have a one-on-one duel. Hongtsu and Shiozai is under the suppressive defense of Jason Thibault. The belief that he desperately wants to score will definitely burst out, and this belief will take him into the second zone. If you enter the zone for the second time, then the follow-up will be easy to say. You only need to train in the follow-up, and entering the zone will no longer be so difficult. The hardest part of zone is the second time. Hongtsu and Shio was extremely excited on the court and kept bombarding the basket. Nash Gordo and others also deliberately fed Nijimura the ball, allowing Nijimura to continuously attack. Zach suddenly felt a little regretful, and he said to Nico next to him, "Shouldn't I encourage that kid?" Nico suddenly smiled and joked, "Why? Are you afraid that the main election will be taken away by Hongtsuan?" Zach sighed, looked at Nijimura running on the court, and said, "Indeed, but I'm not someone who cannot afford to lose. If Nijimura Shuzo can defeat me, I am willing to give up my position as the main candidate." Nico laughed, hit Zach on the shoulder, and said, "Hey, when did you idiot become so ambitious?" In this way, the first quarter of the game ended. The score reached an exaggerated 48-0, and the Jackets did not score a point. It's horrible. The Jackets didn't score a point. Am I dreaming? Our strong Jackets team here did not score a point in front of the Black Emperor Dragons. The most terrifying thing is that Mr. Fang only took action once. I didn't expect that the Fang family could actually find 6 such strong players. The crowd kept screaming, obviously shocked that the Jackets didn't score a point. The Jackets are not the strongest among the surrounding street teams, but they're definitely among the top. But such a strong receiving team failed to score a single point in front of Fang Jilai's Black Emperor Dragons. On the field, Nijimura Shuzo sat on the bench, breathing heavily, and at the same time exited the zone. After exiting the zone, Nijimura Shuzo immediately felt a sense of fatigue sweep through his body. Even standing up was a luxury. Nash Goldo used the eyes of the Demon King to observe the changes in the muscles of Nijimura's body. It was discovered that after quitting the zone, Hongsuan's various muscle-building data had declined, and he was in an obvious overdraft state. Nash Gordo had never seen this state before, and he was very curious. What kind of state has he entered that can turn a weak person into a player stronger than Zack and others in an instant? Nash Goldo didn't understand and asked, "Brother Lai, Hongsuan just..." Hongsuan Shiozao gasped and pricked up his ears, wanting to see if what Fang Jilai said was what he thought. Zack was also a little curious. "Yes, Brother Lai, what happened in Hongsuan just now?" Fang Jilai looked around at the people staring at him and explained, "Zone. Hongsuzu has just entered the zone state." After hearing this, Nash Gordo thought for a moment, then suddenly raised his head and said in surprise, "Leg, are you talking about that basketball player's dream state?" Fang Jilai nodded and briefly explained the zone's capabilities and entry conditions to everyone. To put it simply, a zone allows a player who can exert up to 80% of his or her ability to immediately perform 100% or even more than 100% of his or her ability. Only those who love basketball and have extremely high talent can enter. When Zack heard this, he looked at Nijimura Shuzo in surprise and said, "Oh my god, so Nijimura. It seems that I will be Nijimura's substitute." Nash Gordo frowned tightly. He still felt that there was a sense of disobedience in Hong Siyuan Shiozeo. Fang Jilai seemed to see what Nash Gordo was thinking. He explained how Hong Tsuan Shoujo entered the zone and how difficult it was to enter the zone for the second time. Everyone felt incredible after hearing this. Zack turned to look at Hong Tsuan Zaizu and asked quickly, "Hong Tsuan, did you just enter the zone because of your belief in scoring a goal?" Nijimura Shuzo slowly raised his head and recalled what happened in the game just now, and found that the only thought in his mind at that time was to score a goal. Suddenly, Hong Tsuan Zaizu remembered something. That black shadow? Jilai, I saw a gate before entering the zone. Fang Jilai nodded and said, "That is the door to the zone. Only geniuses who open the door can enter the zone." Hong Tsuan Shiozao then spoke. "That's the problem. I tried to push it alone, but it didn't work." Nash Gordo frowned and said, "It means that something helped you open the door, right?" Hong Tsuan Shiozao nodded seriously. "A dark shadow. That dark shadow helped me push open the door." +_GV +% Fang Jilai thought for a while and realized that the construction situation in Hong Tsuan was completely different from the original work. Although there is a dark shadow in the original work, it is the gatekeeper Kuroko Tetsuya. Moreover, Kuroko Tetsuya is only the gatekeeper of Kagami Taiga and Aomine Daiki and cannot be the gatekeeper of Nijimura Shuzo. Moreover, the door Kuroko Tetsuya is guarding is the second gate, not the first. Now that we know that the black shadow is not Kuroko Tetsuya, there is only one possibility. The shadow is the belief built by Hong Tsuan Building, because Hong Tsuan Building's belief in wanting to score goals gave birth to it. That's why it helped Hong Tsuan Construction open the door to the zone. It seems that the black shadow is your belief in Nijimura. Alan said. Jason Sieber thought for a while and found that there seemed to be no other problems with Alan's words. So he echoed, "Alan should be right." Nash Gordo thought for a long time and found that he couldn't think of anything else. So he stopped worrying. "Okay, Alan will replace Nijimura and go out for dinner after winning this game." Fang Jilai said loudly. Everyone nodded, yes. Brother Lai. At the beginning of the second quarter, the 5 Nash Gordo players came back on the field. The 5 members of the original team of Explosive Neck Dragons in the original book officially met here to play for Fang Jilai. Hong Tsuan looked at the backs of the 5 people and asked Fang Jilai, "Jilai, is it really difficult for me to enter the second zone?" Fang Jilai did not look back, looked at the game on the field, and spoke slowly, "No, because I believe you." Chapter 119, Your offensive intention is too obvious. Hong Tsuan Zaizu is actually a little worried. He loves basketball very much and wants to improve his strength. His father is also very supportive of him playing basketball, but since his father fell ill, he has thought about giving up basketball more than once. I had already made the decision to resign as captain after winning the national championship in middle school and give up basketball to take care of my father. But he didn't expect that everything would change from one of his junior students. Fang Jilai not only helped treat his father, but also invited him to join the Black Emperor Dragon team. Originally, Hong Tsuan Zaizu thought that the strength in the team was not very strong. I am also determined to win the game for Fang Jilai. Even if I am injured, I will still play for Fang Jilai. But after joining the team, he discovered that everyone on the team was strong. If the players of the Black Emperor Dragons didn't let go in a one-on-one match, he wouldn't even be able to score a goal. It is precisely because of this that Hong Tsuan Shiozao feels that he owes Fang Jilai more. Fang Jilai's team clearly didn't need him to join, but he still gave himself a spot and strengthened his training. I have nothing to repay. The only thing I can do is to become stronger, score more goals in the game, and play for Fang Jilai. On the field, Everyone in the Black Emperor Dragon team showed their strong strength. Nash Goldo's Devil's Eye is matched with his zero-frame starting pass. Catch your opponent off guard and shock your audience. Jason Thiber used a power that far exceeded Blau's, constantly bombarding the basket, completely beating Blau into doubting his life. He even doubted whether his muscles were really gained from taking drugs. Zach kept toying with Raglan with fancy dribbling. Nico didn't want to worry about it so much. He dribbled the ball a few times and shot a jump shot, making Mullen doubtful about his life. After Allen came on the court, he kept teasing Isaac, using street balls to make Isaac completely popular. But Isaac didn't dare to vent his anger on the members of the Black Emperor Dragon team, so he had to punch Bobby to the ground. This scene left the audience and the Black Emperor Dragon team confused. Blau was also very angry and put Isaac on the bench and let two substitutes play. The subsequent game was even more one-sided. The Jackets also gave up their struggle in the third quarter and ran back and forth on the court. After 4 quarters, the game ended with an exaggerated score of 121-12. The Black Emperor Dragons became completely famous after this battle. Not only the local area, but also almost all street ball teams knew the name of the Black Emperor Dragons. Everyone also knows that this is a team founded by the heir to the Fang family. These 5 words, heir to the Fang family, completely dispelled all the street ball team's bad thoughts. Now, they're very conflicted. Both hope to meet and play a game with the Black Emperor Dragons to gain popularity. But I don't want to meet the Black Emperor Dragons, because the game may be a disastrous defeat. The day after the Jackets game, in the Fang family basketball gym, Hongsu and Jason, you guys have a one-on-one duel. Fang Jilai said to Niji Tsunsho and Jason Thibault. Jason Thibault hooked the basketball in, turned around and said, yes. After saying that, Jason Thibault walked to the empty basket. Seeing this, Fang Jilai turned to Hongsu and Shiozao, who was standing there, and said, go ahead, Senior Nijimura, just do your best. Nijimura Shizo was holding the basketball and looking at the tall Jason Shibua, and suddenly felt that his ears seemed to have heard wrongly. Jilai, you asked me to challenge him to a duel? Fang Jilai nodded. Yes. Nijimura Shiozao swallowed, slightly nervous. After all, Nijimura Shizo couldn't even beat Zach, but now Fang Jilai asked him to challenge Jason Thibault. This span made Hongsu and Shiozao a little unresponsive for a while, but he still didn't refuse. For him now, he would never refuse Fang Jilai's words. Nijimura Shiozao took a deep breath and made up his mind. He slowly walked to Jason Shibua, stretched out his hand. Please advise. Jason Shibua and Hong Tsunshio held hands together. Hong Tsun, I won't show mercy. Hong Tsun Shiozao's eyes were solemn. He nodded seriously, then looked at Fang Jilai and asked, Jilai, how many balls should we hit? Everyone in the Black Emperor Dragon team moved closer, ready to watch the duel between the two. 21 points. 2 points for a goal beyond the 3-point line. Fang Jilai spoke slowly. Jason Shibua and Hong Tsun nodded and prepared to start a one-on-one duel. Jason Thibault grabbed the basketball and passed it to Zuniji. You tee off first, Nijimura. Hongsu and Shiozao did not refuse. Facing a strong player like Jason Shibua, any humility would put him at a disadvantage. Nijimura Shizo took the basketball and made a triple threat gesture. Jason Shibua slowly leaned down and stared at Hongsu and Shiozao. A strong sense of oppression slowly spread from his body. Hongsun, it's up to you whether you can enter the zone or not. Jason Shibua thought to himself. Jason Shibua knew clearly that this one-on-one duel was to allow Hong Siwen Zizu to enter the zone again. To be precise, everyone in the Black Emperor Dragon team knew it. Only Nijimura Shizo didn't know. The purpose was to let him burst out with a strong desire to score goals without knowing it, so that he could enter the zone again. Hong Siwen Zizu felt the pressure emanating from Jason Shibua, and suddenly felt that his body became heavier. Damn it! Is the sense of oppression so strong? Hong Tsun Shiozao gritted his teeth and suddenly fired a cold arrow. The explosive ball took one step laterally and immediately made a jump shot. When Jason Shibua saw Hong Tsun Zaiza move, he immediately followed him. He exerted force with his right foot, and the man jumped high into the air. Jason Thibault jumped up, blocking the sky and the sun, instantly blocking the shooting lane built by Hongsuin. He stretched out his right hand high, like reaching for the stars and catching the moon, and grabbed the shot made by Hongsuin Shio. What? How could it be? Nijimura Shizo was surprised. He didn't expect Jason Thibault's defensive range to be so outrageous. He already had the maximum time to take a shot, but Jason Thibault effortlessly caught his shot. Jason Shibua grabbed the basketball and landed it, staring at Hongsuin Zaizu, and said, "Hongsuin, your offensive intention is too obvious." Zach nodded on the sidelines, acknowledging what Jason Thibault said. Shibua is right. Nijimura, your offensive intention is too obvious. If it were me, I would definitely not shoot sideways in front of Shibua. Nijimura Shizo listened to the two men.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.